The story starts with the main protagonist introducing himself. His name is Cirrus, and he is an upright man. He shares that he activated a system not very long ago, as the person he had locked onto would stir up the deepest feelings within their heart, but he originally refused to do so until he encountered the present incident. So actually, what happened was that Ceres and his group were used as bait by higher authorities to lure out the enemies. It was all because they were of low grade, and the enemy was so powerful that they couldn't fight back. So everyone was running, but Ceres didn't want to. Here comes another lead role in the story, the demon princess named Yug. Yug laughs at Ceres and his group, asking if this was the power of human heroes, since they were so feeble and powerless, and no match for her great king. The companion of Ceres, a Class D hero named Bella, asks Ceres to run away as the Warcraft levels were too high, and he didn't have to worry about her. Bella said this because she thought he was an F-grade hero, so he didn't need to show heroics. Ceres responds by saying that he came to ensure the city's safety, so in such a moment, how could he run away? He also asks Bella not to worry as he could handle Yug. On the other side, Yug was yawning, saying that humans were so weak they didn't interest her at all. Ceres said that he wouldn't run away from the battle. At that time, his nose was bleeding, and seeing this, Bella tensely asked if his nose was bleeding. She then shouts at Ceres that just standing there facing them, her body couldn't withstand it, yet he was still trying to engage in battle. Bella again asks him to escape together, but it's too late, as one of the goblins told Yug that there's another person standing behind them. Hearing this, she moves towards Ceres, ordering her goblins to wipe him out. She also tells the goblins to use Ceres's head to make a wine glass for her beloved king. Seeing Yug coming towards him, Ceres logged in his power and locked Yug as his target. Just in a few seconds, she got locked with his power. Still, Ceres was tense as Yug came very close to him and opened her mouth as if she was going to eat him. But to his surprise, she kissed him instead. Due to this, his power got upgraded a little bit. Meanwhile, Bella was stunned to see that scene and shouted, asking Ceres what he was doing. Even the goblins were shocked and asked Yug what she was doing. When a goblin tried to come close, Ceres hit him with his sword and the goblin flew away from them. Seeing this, Yug snapped out of it and moved away from him. Ceres was acting like he got what he wanted, whereas Bella was in shock and blushing, embarrassed by that moment. On the other hand, Yug was wondering what was going on with her. Wasn't she supposed to wipe out Ceres? So why did she kiss him? She then thought it must be Ceres's fault. Ceres shouted that for the safety of the city residents, even if he had to sacrifice his entire body, he wouldn't hesitate. Ceres gets ready with his sword, asking the goblins to come as he would fight them. Seeing this, the goblins start discussing why their highness kissed a human, and they had heard that she found someone young, but they didn't think it could be a human. While they were discussing that, their leader goblin came and shouted at them, asking them not to be presumptuous. He questioned how dare they question their highness's feelings for the king. He said that they were monsters, and only filthy humans would engage in such infidelity. On the other side, Yug was tensed, wondering about the king, as the king should not find out about her kissing a human. It was really strange for her because her heart was beating so fast. Yug asks her goblins to go and wipe out Ceres. Ceres was standing with his sword, and the goblin leader came and attacked towards Ceres. He tried to defend himself from the attack, but to his shock, the attack was so powerful that his sword got cut in half. Seeing this, he tensely wonders how it could be possible for a single strike to shatter his sword. Now, the leader goblin was coming for another attack, and this time Ceres somehow dodged it. At that moment, he realized that his defense hadn't been increased, but his attack power had increased by 100 points. So he attacked back, and surprisingly, the goblin's sword also shattered. Now, another goblin was coming from behind. Ceres turned around and attacked with his full power at that goblin, and the monsters got sent away, seeing which Bella was surprised to see that Ceres really sent the monsters away, realizing that a level F didn't have that much power. Ceres then tensely saw that the goblin he attacked with full power didn't get his body cut in half, as surprisingly, the goblin only got a scratch. While he was thinking and looking at the goblin in front, he got sneak attacked by Yug from behind. For relief, Bella saw it and warned Ceres about Yug's sneak attack. Ceres turned back and tried to block her attack by making a hand shield, but it didn't work, and he got stomped by her. A big blast happened nearby. Still, Ceres was alive and suppressed, lying on the ground. Seeing this, the goblin saw a chance and ran towards Ceres to wipe him out. Ceres got tense as he had no power and no time to defend himself. To everyone's surprise, a big tail came in the way and slashed the goblin away from Ceres. It was none other than Yug's tail. Seeing this, the other goblins were in shock, and the leader goblin asked about it. Yug orders them that no one is allowed to move from their places, and those who dare to disobey her will be killed. Her face looked like she was embarrassed and wanted to do something romantic, but she shared with the goblin that she wants to teach Ceres a lesson by herself. Hearing this, the goblins got happy and responded with a yes. Yug opened her mouth and said something, slowly going towards Ceres. At that moment, her saliva fell on his ear, and his defense upgraded by plus 50 points. Seeing this, Ceres was wondering whether it was the price he had to pay for his power, as letting an upright person like him go through such things was simply an insult to his character. But then he thought that compared to the safety of the city residents, a little insult didn't matter much. Meanwhile, Yug was also confused about her actions, as she was strangely taking the initiative to do such things to a human. Thinking about it, she got frustrated. As a monster, she should stop it, but when she tried, it didn't work, as her body wasn't obeying her orders. Again, the goblins, seeing the scene, were confused, as their highness wanted to kill the human, but it was looking like something else was happening. Hearing this, the goblin leader again told them that they were being presumptuous, so they should open their dog's eyes and see it clearly, as their highness was looking for a breakthrough with him. If they didn't understand, they shouldn't speak recklessly. Slowly but surely, his defense and attack power rose up, so Ceres was wondering whether now he would be able to deal with the group of goblins. He tried to take out his broken sword, but the goblin leader saw it and warned Yug, so Yug grabbed his hand with her tail and then choked his neck. She then held him up in the air with a furious facial expression. Seeing this, the goblins got happy and started jumping in happiness as their highness really wanted to wipe out Ceres. But again, she held back because of her strange behavior and will. She then went very close to him and asked if he dared to fight against them, the monsters. So, she threatened to strip him now, and saying that, she pulled his t-shirt and tore it into pieces. She told Ceres that she wanted to show the humans the difference between their weak bodies and the bodies of monsters. But deep inside, Yug was intrigued and desperately wanted to see Ceres's body and his six-pack. On the other side, the goblins were thinking that Yug's move was very ruthless and that she was giving a lesson to the humans. Meanwhile, Ceres got tense as his armor got torn, but he noticed that Yug's hand was coming towards him, so he tried to brace himself, believing that he could definitely hold on and couldn't let her get any closer. On the other hand, Yug was tense and also feeling romantic, knowing that it was happening from her deep heart, but she also tried to endure that and didn't act on it. Still, both couldn't endure and hold back, as now she was putting both her hands on him and was very close, with lustful eyes and mouth. Finally, she kissed him. Due to her teeth, he felt pain while kissing, and he realized that his current strength wasn't enough to fight those monsters. Bella was also confused and embarrassed, wondering whether they were fighting or engaging in romance. Here, Ceres was ready to endure every pain for the safety of the city residents, as he could sacrifice his own well-being for the greater good. Even though she was holding him, now Ceres held her and pulled her towards himself for the kiss because he wanted to upgrade his power and defense. While the kiss was going on, he was upgrading, whereas the goblins and Bella were confused and shocked. Suddenly, the real king arrived, and upon seeing her kissing a human, he was greatly shocked. His sword fell from his hand due to the shock, and he called for Yug. Yug stopped kissing and looked upward with an embarrassed face. Even the goblins were shocked to see the king. The king's name was Demon Lord Bartley. Bartley, in shock, exclaimed that she literally kissed that human. Meanwhile, Ceres's system detected Bartley, and a critical hit was received by him, doubling all his bonuses and leveling up by 1 level. Now, King Bartley entered rage mode and shouted that he was going to kill him. Yug, in shame, told Bartley that it wasn't what he thought and asked for time to explain everything. Meanwhile, Ceres wondered whether his current level would be enough to fight the king. King Bartley furiously attacked Ceres, shouting at him to stay away from his beloved Yug. In an instant, Bartley reached near Ceres, and due to the attack, Ceres was thrown into the air and fell hard on the ground, the impact greatly affecting his body. Bella tensely asks if he's okay, to which Ceres responds that he could still hold on. Ceres then wonders why King Bartley suddenly appeared in front of him, and why his attack power was surprisingly high. On the other hand, Bartley asks Yug if she didn't say it wouldn't happen again next time. Yug doesn't respond. Bartley is so mad that he's trembling, and he asks if she still remembers the last words she said to him, that if there's another time, let him have her wiped. So why on earth was she doing that? Surprisingly, Yug furiously responds that the reason for all of that is because of him. She questions why he came up so late, and what he was doing all the time. Both Bartley and the goblins are shocked to hear that response and the questions she is asking the king. Yug again shouts that it's all because of him, as he came too late and almost led her to repeat the same mistake. She also said that he messed up himself, yet he had the audacity to question her and threaten her. Bartley was shocked and confused, trying to say something, but he didn't know what to say. Before he could respond, Yug asks again why it took him so long to come and what he was doing during that time. So lastly, Yug became angry instead of Bartley, and the game got fully changed. This is what a woman could do. Yet Bartley tried to make up for his mistake, asking Yug to not be angry as he was wrong. He explained that he saw many humans running away, so he went out to deal with them first. Bartley was begging her not to be angry, saying that he wouldn't do it again next time, so please don't be angry. The goblins witnessed the entire incident and were discussing it among themselves. Goblin 1 remarked that their king was truly affectionate towards the queen, to the point of humbly admitting mistakes. No wonder he managed to marry a queen like her, a formidable woman. Goblin 2 shared that the realm between him and the king was still far off. Perhaps he should continue to embrace the single life. Another goblin realized his mistake and decided to convey his feelings to his crush, Mrs. Satir, the next day. On the other hand, Ceres was tensed and thought to slip away quickly while they were not paying attention, as the level between him and the monster king was too big. There, Yug started crying, which made Bartley even more tense, and he continuously asked her to stop crying. The goblins were still discussing about them and Ceres, while Bella was quietly running away from there. Ceres asks Bella if she could still walk on her feet, or if he had to carry her on his back. Bella responds to him not to worry, as her leg was a bit fractured, but she could still walk on her own. On the other side, Yug shares with Bartley that it's all because of him coming late, which led her to be tempted by that human, and they almost tarnished their pure and faithful love. She starts crying again, and seeing this, he asks her to stop crying. He says that if it's because of that human, then he's going to wipe out that human right away. He also asks if she wouldn't be sad if he kills that human, and she happily responds with a yes. She explains that he is her eternal love, and even in death, they would return to nothingness together. So how could she fall in love with other men? She also says that she just loves his majestic and domineering appearance. Until then, Bartley saw that Ceres and Bella were slowly running away. He became furious and shouted at the goblins, asking why they didn't stop those humans if they saw them running. The goblins responded that their highness had just issued an order not to interfere in her matter. He got furious, calling the goblins idiots, and furiously moved towards Ceres. In a second, he reached Ceres, who realized that Bartley had arrived. Bartley furiously asked Ceres how he dared to seduce his beloved woman, Yug, and then kicked him into the air. Ceres flew very far, and upon falling to the ground, he felt like his whole body was broken. He realized that he couldn't defend against the Monster King's attack, as the speed was so fast that it was hard to see. This meant he was no match for the Monster King at all. Bartley came very furiously towards Ceres, saying that he would split him in 2 parts. Upon reaching close and before attacking, he shouted that this was what Ceres had to pay for trying to seduce his woman. Ceres knows that now there's no other way. He could only continue to upgrade. So he shouted again at the system to lock quickly. The moment he locks the system, Yug arrives and slaps Bartley, asking him not to hurt Ceres. From that slap, Bartley was stunned and confusingly asked Yug why she did that. Ceres got the chance and tried to run away from there. Bartley, again with tears, asked why she did that, and realized that she truly cares for that human. Due to Bartley's crying, Ceres leveled up. Seeing this, Ceres wonders if he could win against the Demon King in the current situation, having just leveled up. However, he soon decides to go a little further away before considering the fight. On the other hand, Yug, in a lustful manner, said that she really needed that human body and tried to go towards Ceres. Bartley, the king, held her hand and asked what she was saying, as she had just said he was her lifelong love, so she should not go there. To Bartley's shock, Yug forcefully freed her hand from him and ran towards Ceres, saying that she couldn't stand it anymore. Ceres felt someone following him, and when he turned back, he saw Yug behind him. But it was too late, as she jumped over him and started kissing him. Seeing this, Bartley was shocked and sad, whereas Ceres had no other choice but to be at her mercy. Bartley said that it was because he wasn't good enough that humans took advantage of him. He blamed himself, saying it was all his fault, and declared that he was going to kill that human right away and get Yug back to normal. Upon hearing this, Yug furiously asks Bartley to leave and not disturb her quality time. Bartley was now in full shock, and his heart was broken. As a result, Ceres got a 5-level upgrade in power and defense. Bella tries to barge in, shouting at Yug to leave Ceres and calling her a shameless monster. Ceres even tries to warn Bella not to come near them, but she doesn't hear and gets attacked by Yug. Yug holds Bella in her tail and again starts kissing Ceres. While kissing, she wonders why she was acting like that, as she feels like she was no longer the same person. But deep down, she feels a sense of joy in doing it. Suddenly, Bartley stands up and shouts that Yug lied to him, as all the things she said were lies. He wasn't willing to give in, and Bartley goes to attack Yug. The moment he reaches them and is about to attack, she turns back and sees Bartley. Seeing her face, Bartley feels weird and shouts, asking his sword to stop from attacking her as he loves her so much. But still, Yug didn't care at all and turned back towards Ceres to kiss him. Seeing her again kissing Ceres, Bartley had a complete breakdown. Furiously, he holds his sword and starts doing something, and as a guess, it could be a self-destruction. Here, Ceres' system detected Bartley's complete breakdown, and Ceres had an upgrade of +3 levels in his powers. Seeing Bartley like that, Yug asks what he wants to do, while the goblins got scared and were thinking about running. One of them shouts at the goblins, asking if they want to die, and if not, they should run. Something was happening to Bartley, and on the other side, Cirrus reached level 10 and his new skills unlocked. As Cirrus acquired a new skill, he took his sword and slashed away at Bartley with it. The new skill was known as Swift Body Slash, in which his sword could transform into a phantom and swiftly appear within a 5-meter radius of the enemy, executing a decisive strike. Seeing this, Yug also got stunned that Bartley was defeated in one slash. Ceres wonders that if he keeps upgrading, he should acquire some more skills. However, Yug was frustrated with Bartley as he didn't perform well last time either, and the second time was supposed to be calmer, so why was everything falling apart? Actually, she was expecting Bartley to be a weak guy, and it turned out to be just as she expected. Suddenly, to Yug's surprise, Bartley jumps towards her and grabs her. Startled by the sudden incident, Yug loosens her grip on Bella, and Bella is released. Bartley shouts at Yug to keep her promise and die with him. In response, Yug says she doesn't want to die. On the other hand, Cirrus's system informs him that Bartley was going to self-destruct, so he tries to run away, taking Bella with him. Meanwhile, Yug is crying and shouting at Bartley to leave her alone as she doesn't want to die. In a moment of desperation, she shouts and asks who will save her. Out of nowhere, Ceres appears and cuts off Bartley's hands with his sword. He then grabs Yug and runs away from the scene. In his final moments, Bartley calls out Yug's name and self-destructs. As the blast occurs, the ground breaks into pieces and all three fall inside. While falling, something strange was happening to Yug. When they land, Bella falls beside Cirrus, and Yug falls on top of Cirrus. Ceres wonders if they've just fallen to the bottom of the dungeon. Suddenly, he sees a salamander and is stunned. But soon his system shows that it was Yug's salamander form, and now her magic value was 0, and her health points were only 9. Yug runs and hides inside Cirrus's pant leg. Meanwhile, Bella regains consciousness and slowly tries to stand up, wondering about Ceres. However, in the process, she ends up in a crawling position and somehow gets into a weird position with Cirrus. At that moment, Cirrus receives a notification that he has been rewarded with the Naya map of the dungeon for defeating the Demon Lord. The notification asks him if he wants to open it. Ceres becomes confused, pondering whether he should open it or not, realizing that he needs to think carefully before making a decision. Suddenly, Bella sees Cirrus just below her, with his face near her private area. Shocked, she hastily moves away, apologizing. She trembles, deeply embarrassed by the incident. However, Cirrus doesn't seem to be paying attention to her. As he contemplates whether to open the map or not, Cirrus finally decides to do so. Upon opening the map, he sees various details, including dead ends, traps, and available resources. Seeing this, Cirrus feels relieved and happy, knowing that he can now navigate the dungeon without worrying about getting lost. He realizes he can proceed directly to the boss room with confidence. Hearing this, Bella becomes confused and asks what Cirrus was talking about, if he saw something. Cirrus responds with a simple, "No," dismissing it as nothing. At that moment, Cirrus realizes that only he can see his system, keeping its existence a secret. Ceres then asks Bella to leave from there, but suddenly he feels a sharp pain in his chest and vomits something of a purple color, resembling either blood or poison. Seeing this, Bella becomes tense and asks what happened to him, why he suddenly started vomiting. Surprisingly, it doesn't stop at vomiting, as his hand starts to burn and his little finger begins to shorten, consumed by flames. Ceres howls in pain, writhing on the ground as the agony consumes him. His whole body was being consumed by flames, and Bella rushes to him, hugging him from behind and holding his hand. She notices that his back is already bleeding, so she prevents him from running his hands on the ground any further. She also notices that his body is incredibly hot, as if he had been scorched by fire. With her help, the burning sensation in his finger stops, but not before half of his little finger flies through the air after being burned. Despite the ordeal, he feels some relief and assures Bella that he's all right for the time being. Tensely, Bella asks Cirrus what's happening to his body and why it's melting. Sadly, Cirrus shares that he has been poisoned. 6 months ago, monsters attacked the city, and he witnessed several monsters fighting with a hero from the guild. He also shares that during the fight, the monsters seemed to be fighting over a box. The box got slashed by one of the monsters, causing a blast. Cirrus was shaken by the force of the explosion and thrown into the ruins. While buried under the stones, something leaked from the cut box. As soon as it leaked, blood rain began to fall from the sky. The pungent smell stunned him, making him feel like vomiting. Everyone else started shouting and getting burned by the rain. Ceres shares that he was still under the pile of rocks and hadn't directly come into contact with the blood rain. However, his back hurts intensely, feeling as though it's about to melt. Despite not making direct contact, he was still poisoned by smelling the odor. When he woke up, he found himself in the hospital, where the doctor delivered the grim news that he had at most 1 more year to live. Suddenly, he sees something like a screen in front of himself and is stunned to read that the blood of the demon lord could cure the poison. The screen asks Cirrus if he wants to bind the system and become a player to receive clues on acquiring the blood of the demon lord. Cirrus agrees, and the next information he receives is that the blood of the demon lord is currently in the Nay dungeon. The scene then returns to the present, where Cirrus shares with Bella that he later discovered the antidote method, which is right there in the underground dungeon. Cirrus stands up and asks Bella to let's go, mentioning that there's a room ahead with clothes and weapons, so they should change first. Bella agrees, and they move towards the room. The scene shifts to another part of the dungeon where other people are also traveling. A man with a shield in hand walks ahead of everyone. Suddenly, his foot presses something on the ground, triggering an attack by a laser ray. Seeing this, the group's vice captain, Mark, quickly instructs everyone to step back. He warns them that there's a mechanism in place and advises them not to move recklessly. He emphasizes the importance of staying put, because any movement could trigger other mechanisms as well. The group is shocked, especially since their strongest defender, Claude, had his head easily pierced. They wonder how to proceed, considering that the cannon fodder group had already been sent as bait. Tyr shares that they have no one else they could use as bait. Suddenly, Cyrus, the leader of the group, speaks up, saying that it's not easy to get into the dungeon, so they can't just go back for the time being. Cyrus then suggests using the old rule. The person with the lowest grade comes forward. Upon hearing this, the lowest grade member, Makui, tries to run away. However, Cyrus furiously commands Makui to walk in front and find the correct route, reminding him of the consequences of disobeying orders. Makui was too tense to respond at that moment. Tyr intervened, asking Cyrus to stop as he had made an arrow that could bounce back and forth. Tyr suggested letting it go and explore first, hoping to trigger at least one mechanism to increase their chances of survival. As soon as Tyr takes out his arrow, which resembles a ball, Cyrus swiftly cuts it in half with his sword. Seeing this, Makui becomes even more tense. Cyrus shouts at Mark, warning him that if he catches sight of those shoddy creations again, he will wipe him out. Being a vice captain, Tyr doesn't respond. Afterward, Cyrus instructs Makui to get up and explore further. Makui, trembling in fear, takes slow steps forward. To his relief, when he takes his first step, nothing triggers any mechanism. Tensed, Makui struggles to decide which step to take next, contemplating among the many options. Seeing this, Cyrus shouts at Makui, asking him what he's dawdling about and urging him not to waste time, but to hurry up. Shaking and trembling, Makui somehow manages to move his foot forward and places it on the next step. Once again, he is saved as there isn't any mechanism triggered. Cyrus praises Makui for his spirit and urges him to continue hurrying up. Makui was overwhelmed with a sense of impending doom, feeling certain that he was going to die. Unable to walk forward any longer, he stops. Sensing his hesitation, someone from behind uses air power to forcefully push him forward. Makui, on the brink of falling, shouts that he doesn't want to die, pleading to go home. As soon as Makui's foot touches the next step, a big laser ray shoots out from the bottom, wiping out Makui in an instant. Everyone becomes tense, realizing that the attack came from below this time. They wonder if it's possible that the mechanism in the dungeon changes the attack location each time. Moreover, the beam of the attack always appears suddenly, making it impossible to perceive where it originates from. Cyrus stands silently for a moment before asking the person with the lowest grade to come forward. Suddenly, the door in front of them begins to open halfway. Tensely, they inform their leader, Cyrus, that the door is opening. Cyrus also becomes tense for a moment. But when the door opens fully and Cirrus and Bella come out, everyone feels relieved. They inform Cyrus that both of them were from the decoy team. Cyrus is stunned to see Cirrus and wonders if the members of the decoy team were supposed to be eliminated. He questions whether Cirrus disobeyed his orders and escaped to the dungeon. Cyrus's anger towards Cirrus likely stems from a combination of factors. Firstly, there may have been a sense of betrayal because Cirrus, as a member of the decoy team, was expected to sacrifice himself. Instead, he survived and reappeared, suggesting that he may have disobeyed orders or acted against the group's plan. Additionally, Cirrus's survival may have disrupted Cyrus's understanding of the situation and the control he thought he had over it. This unexpected turn of events could have triggered Cyrus's anger and frustration. The situation escalates as Cyrus confronts Cyrus with aggression, holding a sword to his neck. He demands to know how Cirrus knows the color of his wife's underwear, indicating a breach of privacy and potentially insinuating that Cirrus has been spying on or involved with Cyrus's wife inappropriately. This confrontation suggests a deep mistrust and anger on Cyrus's part towards Ceres, leading to a tense and potentially dangerous situation. Ceres responds tensely, explaining that he was training his instincts for the upcoming battle, which allowed him to perceive the color of everything around him. However, Cyrus dismisses it as a lie and is about to attack Cyrus, demanding that he quickly explain the relationship between him and his wife, Shuikin. This confrontation further intensifies the tension between them, with Cyrus seeking answers and Cyrus struggling to provide a satisfactory explanation. Cyrus's teammates intervene, urging him to calm down and reminding him that he can't kill someone in the city. Suddenly, Cyrus becomes furious and shouts that he would never allow them to slander his integrity like that. He declares that he will prove the results of his training in front of them. This outburst adds to the tension of the situation, with Cyrus determined to defend his honor and prove himself to his accusers. Cyrus boldly reveals his observations. The first person wasn't wearing underwear, Cyrus was wearing pink underwear, and the other two were wearing couple underwear. Upon hearing this, the first person urges Cyrus to eliminate Cyrus immediately, but the others oppose the idea, asking them not to take such drastic action. This revelation adds another layer of tension to the situation, with conflicting reactions among the group members. They express concern that if Cyrus were to eliminate Cyrus in the city and the body were discovered, it would cause unnecessary trouble for everyone. Cyrus asks for their suggestions, and they propose the idea of putting Cyrus in the bait group. This would eliminate their need for direct involvement in Cyrus's fate and potentially mitigate any fallout if his body were to be discovered. As the scene returns to the present, Cyrus wonders how he ended up encountering a raiding party when he had only come there to exchange equipment. It appears that they are lost, adding to the confusion of the situation. Cyrus then commands Cyrus to come to them, asserting his authority as a captain. Hearing this, Cyrus wonders if Cyrus once again wants the lower-level members to walk through the mechanisms as bait. Before Cyrus could respond, Tyr advises him not to move and shares his suspicion that Cyrus and Bella managed to survive, implying that they may have found a safe route. He suggests following their route to avoid the mechanisms, thus sparing the team members from unnecessary risk. Cyrus responds by emphasizing the urgency of defeating the big boss of the C-grade dungeon. He mentions that they have already sacrificed numerous valuable combat team members for this cause, and there's no time to turn back now. Cyrus challenges Mark, asking if he's truly acting in the best interest of the team. He suggests that if Tyr doesn't agree with his decision, he is free to leave. This highlights the conflicting priorities within the group and the tension between Cyrus's determination to press forward and Mark's concern for the team's safety. Mark's silence speaks volumes as Cyrus turns his attention back to Cyrus. He questions whether Cyrus's intuition has been trained and asserts that it's time for him to contribute to the team. Cyrus warns Cyrus to understand the consequences of disobeying orders, indicating that he expects full cooperation and participation from everyone. Despite agreeing to Cyrus's request, Cyrus hesitates when Bella raises concerns about the road ahead. She suggests looking for another route and finding solutions to the issue they may encounter. Cyrus pauses, realizing the validity of Bella's concerns and the importance of considering alternative paths for their safety. Cyrus responds by reminding Bella that Captain Cyrus had already given the order for him to proceed. He reassures her not to worry, confident that he will be fine. With determination, Cyrus takes the first step forward without any hesitation, surprising everyone with his resolute obedience to Cyrus's command. As Cyrus proceeds, the others wonder if he's being too reliant on his intuition to predict the mechanisms. However, the map is guiding Cyrus, indicating that he should take 3 steps forward and then turn left 2 spaces. This suggests that Cyrus may have a combination of intuition and strategic planning at his disposal. Without hesitation, Cyrus moves 3 steps forward. Everyone is stunned when he doesn't get hurt even after taking 3 steps, attributing it to luck. As Cyrus continues to move forward without triggering any mechanisms, the others become increasingly shocked, wondering why he hasn't encountered any traps yet. 1 step forward, Cyrus hesitates before placing his foot down. Cyrus, noticing this hesitation, becomes hopeful and asks if Cyrus has detected the mechanisms. However, Cyrus responds negatively, indicating that he hasn't. Everyone wonders how Cyrus could possibly know the right path, considering that gathering information on just the first half of the dungeon's terrain cost over a dozen intelligence agents. Their thoughts are interrupted as Cyrus jumps over a step. Everyone assumes that Cyrus's success relies solely on luck, especially since they believe an F-grade hero like him lacks the qualifications for intelligence. This reinforces their belief that Cyrus's progress is merely a result of chance rather than skill or knowledge. As Cyrus jumps due to losing his balance, Cyrus becomes tense, wondering why the mechanism wasn't triggered. The map instructs Cyrus to take 5 more steps forward. Hearing this, Cyrus becomes happy, realizing that he's almost reached his destination. Despite the initial misunderstanding, Cyrus continues to follow the guidance of the map, eager to reach his goal. Everyone is shocked to see Cyrus approaching them without triggering any mechanisms along the way. They question how Cyrus managed to navigate through the dungeon without setting off any traps, and whether he can truly rely solely on intuition to sense the mechanisms. Cyrus's seemingly flawless progress raises doubts and curiosity among the group, wondering about the true extent of his abilities. Ceres informs Cyrus that his progress was the result of his training and denies any wrongdoing with Shuikin. However, Cyrus remains skeptical, putting his sword to Cyrus's neck and expressing doubt about the validity of Cyrus's intuition, considering it nothing more than luck. Cyrus asserts that luck eventually runs out and orders Cyrus to lead the way from there if his intuition is truly reliable. Suddenly, Ceres saw some mushrooms on the ground. The map indicated that the mushrooms were known as kale mushrooms, and when consumed by monsters, they increase stamina and relieve soreness. However, if a human consumes them, they may cause diarrhea. Upon learning about the mushrooms, Ceres wondered whether Yug was hungry. If so, he thought about picking some mushrooms for her to eat. Ceres then picked the mushrooms and pretended to like them as if he intended to eat them himself. While picking up the mushrooms, Ceres was wondering if it was too bad he was a human, so maybe only licking them wouldn't hurt him. He was actually doing that because he didn't want to show that he had Yug. But Cyrus noticed Ceres picking something up, so he asked about it. Ceres was about to explain about the mushroom, but before he could, Cyrus snatched it from his hand and ate it, saying that after conquering the dungeon, all resources of the dungeon belonged to the Heroes Guild and his crusade squad, and that Ceres wasn't qualified to take anything without authorization. Cyrus again ordered Ceres to get to the front. Ceres responded that there were no traps behind the door and they could proceed directly. Cyrus then said that if that was the case, Ceres should go ahead and open the door. Ceres was stunned. Seeing this, Cyrus asked what was wrong and added that he wouldn't let his team members with combat skills take the risk. He told Ceres to stop nagging and go open the door. Ceres approached the door and was about to open it, so Cyrus ordered everyone to stay alert. However, the mushroom started to take effect, and Cyrus began having stomach problems. He became tense and wondered what was wrong with his stomach. On the other hand, Ceres easily opened the door. Tyre again asked everyone to stay alert, as something unexpected might pop up suddenly. Slowly, people near Cyrus started smelling something bad, and it was none other than the gas Cyrus was releasing. Cyrus knew this wasn't good for him. Meanwhile, Ceres started moving further inside. Cyrus shouted and asked what was in there, but deep down, he was tense, wondering why his stomach was acting up at such a crucial moment, and whether he should apply a bit more pressure when gripping. Suddenly, he realized that the mushroom from earlier might be causing it. He decided he couldn't risk intense movement now, as it would start leaking. With a weird smile, Ceres told everyone that, from his observation, there were traps everywhere in the area. Suddenly, out of nowhere, Ceres started running, asking his teammates to keep up with his pace and run together. Cyrus shouted at Ceres, telling him he wasn't allowed to run and to walk slowly. It was an order. However, Ceres didn't hear it and kept running. Everyone else was running behind, wondering what was wrong and why they were running. They speculated if there was something behind them. Meanwhile, Cyrus released gas due to his upset stomach. He became even more tense as he realized he couldn't hold it any longer. Smelling the odor, everyone thought it was something dangerous, so they started running faster. Someone remarked that the smell seemed familiar, to which Cyrus, embarrassed, shouted at the person, asking them to stop talking nonsense and telling everyone to keep running, otherwise they would get poisoned. Upon reaching a place, Ceres stopped due to exhaustion. Cyrus furiously called out to Ceres. Ceres asked what was wrong. Cyrus then asked if Ceres knew the properties of those mushrooms and if he ran on purpose. Ceres acted innocent and responded that he didn't know what happened to those mushrooms. Cyrus thought for a second and responded with a dismissive "no," as if it was nothing. A teammate of theirs came and asked Cyrus to sit on a stone and take a rest, but Cyrus furiously kicked him, urging everyone to pull themselves together and keep moving forward. He also pointed his sword at Ceres, warning him that if Ceres dared to run again, he would immediately strike him down. Ceres tensely responded with a yes and moved further. Along the way, he warned about the traps to ensure they didn't step on them. It was highly effective, as just beside them, a dragon was sleeping, and if they stepped on that tile, it would awaken. Slowly, they reached the last area, and Ceres thought to himself that it should be the final showdown. At that time, Cyrus was wondering that the further they went in, the fewer the mechanisms were. Not a single mechanism had been triggered, and they also hadn't encountered a single monster all the way. So, Cyrus speculated, could it be that Ceres had been in the dungeon before? He also thought about what he was thinking. It couldn't be possible that Ceres had been in the dungeon before, as if Ceres was with his team. He probably would have been eaten by the D-level monster at the entrance, let alone reaching where they were. Suddenly, Ceres interrupted his thinking, saying that if they went further, they should almost be at the big boss's room. Hearing this, Cyrus thought that if they had already reached the boss room, then Ceres had no value left, regardless of his luck or anything else. Ceres had reached the end now. Ceres was standing below a sharp-pointed object, So Cyrus took out his sword, and with a little magic power, he tried to cut the sharp-pointed object. He successfully cut it, but it was still going to fall on Ceres. Cyrus was happy, thinking it would be a reasonable accident for an F-level dungeon explorer to get killed by a mechanism. However, Cyrus's luck wasn't that bad this time. He got saved unexpectedly by a monster. The monster attacked Cyrus, but the falling stone got in the way and was crushed instead. Cyrus noticed the attack, but it was too late as he got hit by the monster's tail. Everyone tensely shouted and asked whether Cyrus was okay, but to their shock, the monster came up behind them. Due to the attack, the place collapsed a bit, and a wall formed between Ceres and the others from the falling stones. On the other hand, Cyrus felt relieved that he reacted to the attacks and managed to block them with the help of his sword. Otherwise, he would have definitely died. Meanwhile, Ceres was checking the stone wall and realized that it was over. He was trapped. Suddenly, he heard a voice asking why there was a human in the dungeon. When Ceres turned back to see, it was a woman. The woman, named Sadiel, remarked that it was disgusting to see a human there near her. The monster, a puppet scorpion of level B+ belonging to Sadiel, stood in front of Cyrus and his team. Tyre shouted at everyone to be ready for battle, while Bella was tense because she found it hard to lift the sword they gave her. Tyre ordered the tankers to come forward and block the movements of the monster, not letting it break through. The tankers stood in front of them with their shields raised. Tyre then instructed the archers to quickly shoot from behind, taking advantage of the distraction created by the tankers. The archers followed the order and shot arrows at the monster. The arrows hit the monster, prompting Tyr to instruct the archers to keep shooting. However, the monster roared loudly, exerting a force that repelled all the arrows shot at it. Everyone also found it hard to stand in that force, and Tyre was shocked that the sheer force of the monster alone repelled all the arrows and their attacks had no effect. Suddenly, Cyrus stood up and asked why they were all standing still like statues, and that they should not be frightened by the aura of the monster. Cyrus tried to motivate them, saying that there was just one monster and they could defeat it easily. Meanwhile, Ceres also heard another voice and wondered if the voice he heard was that of another monster. Out of nowhere, a scorpion tail came towards Ceres to attack, but somehow Ceres dodged it, wondering what it was. Just then, the scorpion itself tried to attack Ceres with a lunge, but Ceres once again dodged it. He then stood still and asked the monster to taste his fist with 3190 attack power. With just one punch from Ceres, the scorpion puppet's body got a hole, and slowly all its parts blasted and scattered here and there. Sadiel was impressed seeing that Ceres actually shattered one of her scorpion puppets with just one punch. At that moment, Ceres was wondering that the antidote which could cure the poison on him was in the room just ahead where the boss was, so he couldn't afford to expend more energy on meaningless battles. So he thought to use the map and escape directly, sparing himself. Sadiel came close and shared that it didn't matter because she was planning to throw away things that had been touched by disgusting humans. She also told Ceres that she originally used the monster to twist his face, but now she had to do it herself. Seeing Sadiel, he got stunned as it was a female monster again. Ceres responded to her that his head wasn't a melon or something which she could easily twist off with her hands. Hearing this, Sadiel responded that she wouldn't touch his disgusting body with her hands. She then explained that although he could deal with outside humans with just his hands, she was actually using her hand to control the scorpion puppets with the help of a string. So she shared with Ceres that she would deal with him first and then go outside and kill the other humans. Ceres furiously shouted that he was a hero and protecting humanity was his duty, so he would stay and fight with her. Even if it meant using up all his strength, he would stand there to block her. Sadiel attacked Ceres, asking if it was really true. She held his head with just one leg and made him fall to the ground. At that moment, Ceres' system got activated and the target was locked as Sadiel. Sadiel said that a guy who overestimated his abilities was nothing to her. On the other hand, the scorpion puppet stopped fighting. Seeing this, Tyre happily asked everyone to look as the monster's head turned red, indicating that their attacks were beginning to take effect. Ceres was surprised at how fast Sadiel was. Sadiel shared that the fact Ceres managed to come there, considering human strength, was quite impressive, but that's it. Lord Ney really hates it when humans step into his room. At that moment, she was putting her second leg on his face, but Ceres knew that the monster was too strong. He realized he must not let the monster go outside. He must stop her there. So he took his head a bit backward and furiously opened his mouth to bite her feet. From Ceres' act, she got embarrassed and shouted that it was so disgusting that Ceres actually did such a thing to her feet. On the other side, while the monster was fighting, Bella noticed that there hadn't been any movement for so long. She thought that Ceres hadn't been unconscious from the stone. She had to take him out. She called Tyr and asked him to cover her as she was going to take out Ceres from the rubble. Tyr got stunned and was asking her to wait, but it was too late as she ran before he could respond. While running, she was hoping for Ceres to be okay, but the scorpion puppet saw her and was going to attack. However, Tyr came in the way and blocked the attack with his sword, though it was very hard for him to block it for very long. Meanwhile, Bella was still wondering about Cirrus, as he was a hero after all, and it's just a pile of rocks, so he should be okay. On the other side, Sadiel lost her grip on Cirrus due to him licking her feet, which made her feel disgusted. Ceres was relieved that he finally got free from her headlock. Cirrus's system told him that he couldn't use the instant kill skill without holding a weapon. Upon hearing this, Cirrus got frustrated. If he had known that it was going to happen, he would have brought a weapon with him. Now, Cirrus had no option but to use his own hands to attack. He tried to punch Sadiel, but she dodged it and kicked at his face. While kicking, she felt that his face was so pulpy. Due to that kick, Cirrus flew through the air and bumped into the stone. Sadiel shared that she felt very comfortable kicking him. Hearing this, Cirrus had no response to give, and Sadiel also got tensed, wondering what was happening to her. So she decided to quickly defeat Cirrus, as it would be troublesome if outside humans ran into Lord Ney's room. She then took the tail of the puppet monster Cirrus had wiped and tried to attack with it. But Cirrus saw the attack coming and dodged it because his agility was good enough to dodge attacks. He then focused magic energy in his hand and sliced the tail into 2 parts. However, it was like a distraction to him because while he was slicing the tail, Sadiel came again with her leg and locked Cirrus's face in it. Her facial expression and words were totally different as she locked him to wipe, but her facial expression looked like she wanted to do something else. Sadiel shared that this time she wouldn't let him go and would strangle him with her feet. Ceres got furious and moved to hold her legs with his hands, determined to make Sadiel feel the power of his grip now. The moment Ceres touched her legs, Sadiel felt weird and quickly jumped away. But soon she stomped on his face with her leg, furiously asking him not to touch her legs with his dirty hands. She even used the cut pieces of the tail to hold his hand. Ceres was stunned to see that she used the scorpion tail he had just broken, and her suppression was so strong that he couldn't evade her attacks at all. She then again put her feet on his face, saying that she was going to crush his face. Even while she was crushing his face, Cirrus's powers were increasing, whereas Sadiel was feeling very good while she was putting her feet on his face. Until the agitation value reached 66%, she told Cirrus that humans were born to be trampled under her feet. But she was trembling, and due to that, the puppet monster outside fighting with Cyrus and others was also shaking. Seeing this, Tyr happily said that the monster had begun to lose its balance, so they should stay tight as they were about to win. On the other side, Sadiel was enjoying it as she was feeling amazing. Meanwhile, Bella was running towards the wall of stones when the scorpion tail was about to attack her. Tyr saw it and tried to warn Bella, but it was too late as she got attacked by the tail and was sent flying, colliding with the rocks. On the other side, Sadiel was touching Ceres in inappropriate places, to which he was shouting and asking her not to touch there, as she wasn't allowed. Near Cyrus, the tail was going to come towards him, and Cyrus was ready to block it. So somehow he dodged it with the help of his sword, but he noticed that even from such a long distance, the tail could still penetrate the wall, which meant the rank of the monster had surpassed that of an elite monster. There, Sadiel was feeling it very fluffy and pulpy, and the agitation value had reached 95%. On the other hand, Cyrus was about to be attacked by the scorpion puppet, and by the time Cyrus realized it was coming from behind, it was too late. He noticed that the Princess of Scorpio was coming, but being too late, he couldn't block them. However, to his relief on the other side, Sadiel became fully agitated and began acting very strangely, as if she were being seduced. So due to that, the scorpion monster also twitched and stopped. Cyrus was surprised to see that he blocked the attack, but he noticed that the monster was howling very weirdly. Seeing the monster so restless, Cyrus thought it would be his perfect chance. So he used his roaring tiger severing strike attack on the scorpion puppet, and the puppet flew away, falling to the ground. Seeing that, everyone got happy and started praising Cyrus for his power, as just with a single strike, he easily wiped out that monster. On the other hand, the agitation value was at 98%, which is why Sadiel was acting so strangely. Here, the monster starts vomiting, and seeing this, everyone thought that Cyrus's attack was so powerful that it made the monster howl in pain. They praised Cyrus, acknowledging that with him around, they didn't need to worry about any magical beast coming their way. Even Cyrus was wondering that the scorpion puppet didn't seem to be very strong, as he could easily defeat that monster. On the other side, something happened with Sadiel, and the monster started moving again, making everyone tense as it wasn't fully wiped out yet. So Cyrus asked everyone to step aside and let him deal with the scorpion puppet. He wanted them to witness the true power of their captain. Sadiel was tense, wondering what the hell had happened to her and why she was doing something like that with a human body. She decided that she had to stay calm. On the other side, Cirrus was wondering what to do, as her body was so resilient, especially her legs, and if it went on like that, she would completely drain him. So Cirrus shouted that he would never submit to her, but she pushed her leg inside his mouth to silence him, shouting for him to shut up because she didn't want to hear his voice. Ceres was getting a similar feeling to what he experienced with Yug, as he felt like he was being played by the girls. But at those times, his powers were increasing rapidly, gaining over 2,000 points each time. On the other side, the scorpion puppet was fighting with Cyrus, but due to Sadiel being seduced and losing her temper, the monster wasn't fighting at full power. Cyrus saw that the monster was losing its power, so he used his sacred whirlwind/attack, and the monster went down. Everyone was happy that Cyrus used his signature attack to defeat the monster, but then they noticed that the monster was still continuously roaring. They murmured that Cyrus was so strong that he had beaten the monster to the point of unconsciousness, causing it to roar uncontrollably. Cyrus then shared that the monster was nothing but a punching bag in front of him. Even Tyre praised Cyrus, saying he was so strong that he defeated the monster with a single strike. On the other side, Cyrus's defense increased by 3,304 points, and his agility increased by 4,310 points, making him much more powerful. Sadiel was enjoying the moment, but suddenly she heard the voice of her lord Nay asking why it was so noisy outside. Hearing the voice, she got tense and jumped off the body of Cyrus. She stepped back and tensely wondered whether it was over. As for a moment, she had actually forgotten Lord Nay's command. She must quickly wipe out the filthy humans and make amends for her mistake. Lastly, Cyrus's attack power increased by 10,000 points. He became so powerful that he exuded a killing aura and asked Sadiel whether she still wanted to continue playing with him. Sadiel got tense seeing his atmosphere, as it was completely different from before. Cyrus's chilling and oppressive presence was like that of Nay-sama. She wondered if she had to fight against someone like him. Seeing his killing intent, she ran away from him. Ceres was confused about why she ran away and whether he should go after her. However, he decided to forget it, as his goal was to obtain the blood of the demon god in the boss room. It was better not to consume physical strength, as Sadiel had already drained too much of his energy. On the other side, while everyone was praising Cyrus and his bravery, Bella tensely ran towards the walls of rock to find Cyrus. But before she could reach the wall, she saw someone breaking it with their legs. When Cyrus came out, he was surprised to see Bella. Bella asked him if he was all right and if he didn't get hurt. Cyrus responded that he was completely fine. But Bella, still observing everything, noticed that he was covered in dust, and she expressed concern that while it might not show on the surface, there could be internal injuries. She even suggested that he let the medical team take a look. Cyrus laughed and responded that he was truly fine. So Bella told him that if he felt unwell, he should let her know immediately. Cyrus responded with a simple, "Okay." Meanwhile, Tyr was trembling with fury, seemingly harboring something in his heart for Bella. Cyrus asked everyone to listen, stating that from that moment on, they were going to follow behind him as he wanted them to witness his true strength, as he was going to defeat the boss alone. Hearing this, everyone was amazed and started praising their captain's mightiness. Cyrus was elated, thinking that the dungeon's danger level was certainly not at C rank, it was probably pushing at D rank at best. So, when he would return to the guild and share his achievements, it would surely lead to a promotion, which was a significant gain for him. The scene then shifted to Lord Nay's room, where Sadiel shared with Nay that there was a very powerful human outside. She didn't know what method he used, but his initially feeble strength skyrocketed to an unimaginable extent in an instant. She asked Nay to be more careful when facing that human. In a weird voice, Nay asked Sadiel what she commanded her. Tensely, Sadiel responded that she commanded her to guard the door and not let any creature enter his room. Upon hearing this, Naye furiously asked if she knew that, then what the hell was she doing out there with that human? Sadiel got tense and was about to respond, but before she could, Nay attacked her. A great blast occurred behind her, but the ray of light passed through her, instantly defeating her. Nay shouted that she didn't want to hear her lame excuses. After that, Nay picked her up with magic and threw her onto the corpses of many monsters and humans, saying that she should just become firewood. At that moment, Sadiel was murmuring that she didn't want to die yet. When Sadiel got thrown onto the corpses, a pond emerged with a green liquid substance inside. Nai shared that after waiting so long, she had almost finished using thousands of humans and monsters as firewood, and the blood of the demon god had finally begun to boil. Suddenly, someone barged into Nay's room by breaking the door. Hearing the sound of the door getting broken, Nay turned back and asked who was so brave and dared to set foot in her room. Cyrus responded that it's him, her daddy, who came to beat the hell out of her. Ceres saw the blood of the demon god, and his system told him that the blood of the demon god could eliminate toxins in his body after consuming it. Nai asks if Cyrus was the powerful human that Sadiel mentioned. Ceres also wonders if the green blood was the one that could detoxify him. Cyrus then asks everyone to listen to him, stating that no one was allowed to take action without his command, as he wanted to take on the boss of the C-rank dungeon by himself. Everyone starts cheering for Cyrus to go and defeat the boss, showing the power of humans and what they could do. Ceres was amazed to see that the thing placed on that platform was actually the blood of the demon god. Meanwhile, Cyrus was running towards Nay to defeat him, and everyone else was cheering for Cyrus. Upon reaching close, Cyrus jumped in the air and told Nay to feel his terror. However, Nay just used her thumb to counterattack, and in that attack, a fierce yellow light ray emerged, burning all the armor Cyrus was wearing. Cyrus also got thrown into the air and crashed into the wall. Seeing this, everyone got shocked and ran towards Cyrus to ask if he was okay. Nay asked if they only had Cyrus as the most powerful human being, and concluded that Sadiel was really useless. On the other side, Cyrus was shocked and wondered that the monster's attack didn't make any sense, as it shattered his A-rank armor with just one strike. Fortunately, he was wearing the S-level soft dragon scale armor that his brother gave him underneath. Otherwise, he would certainly have bid life goodbye. His teammates asked if he was alright, but Cyrus was still lost in thought, wondering what was going on with the underground dungeon and why there were so many differences in strength between monsters. He thought that it wasn't a good idea to fight those monsters head-on, so it would be better to use his team members to exhaust the monster's strength first. Then he would take action when the monster didn't have much strength left. In this way, his chances of winning would be a bit greater. Cyrus stood up and asked everyone to follow his order, charging forward and showcasing their own expertise. However, Tyr interrupted him, suggesting that a full charge assault without formation could result in many unnecessary casualties. He recommended sticking to their previous formation, with tankers using their large shields in front. Cyrus furiously asked Tyr whether he was questioning his judgment or trying to defy his commands. Tyr tensely responded that he wasn't daring to do so. Cyrus then told Tyr to stop talking and do whatever he was ordering. Cyrus then ordered everyone to pick up their weapons and charge forward, assuring them that he was their solid support and there was no need to be afraid. Everyone agreed and moved angrily towards the dungeon boss, Nay. Nay was also ready to attack back and said, "Here comes a bunch of humans who don't know whether to live or die, as their flesh and blood don't even qualify to become sacrificial altar firewood." Nay then shouted that she wanted to show them the difference between humans and monsters, and unleashed her despair-inducing disparity attack on a large scale. Most of them were burned down in that attack. Ceres held Bella and Mark, getting them out of the range of the attack. Most of them were burned, and some were injured. Even Cyrus somehow managed to escape the attack, but his sword was burnt to ashes. Cyrus was shocked to see his own sword destroyed. Nay then flew off into the air and asked Cyrus if he didn't say he would make her feel the sense of terror. Cyrus realized he couldn't win in this situation, so he quickly thought of running away from there. Tyr was stunned to see the burned bodies of his teammates, but to his surprise, he saw Cyrus trying to run, shouting at everyone to retreat. Those who were still alive listened to his command and left the boss room. Tyr got furious hearing that from Cyrus's mouth. But to Cyrus's shock, his hand was grabbed by someone. When Cyrus looked back, it was none other than Ceres. Ceres held his hand, saying that Cyrus had just said he was the solid support for the team members, and his battle against the boss wasn't over yet, so Cyrus couldn't leave. Cyrus tried to shake his hand to free himself from Ceres's grip, but it didn't work as he couldn't loosen Ceres's grip. Cyrus told Ceres that he was the team captain and his words were law. If Ceres wanted to stay and die, he was happy to do so, but he didn't want to drag Ceres into it. Even Nay furiously asked how Cyrus dared to trespass in her domain and wreak havoc in her room, yet still wanted to escape now. Nay then went for another attack. Seeing this, Cyrus got scared and tensely started shouting at Ceres, calling him a fool for not looking back, as the dungeon boss was about to unleash the same light beam again. He even tried to run by pulling his hand, but he was shocked to see that he wasn't able to pull his hand away, and wondered why Ceres had such a strong grip. Cyrus again asked Ceres to let go as the boss was aiming at them, but Ceres wasn't moving, so Cyrus got furious, thinking that he could defeat the boss on his own and also couldn't pull his hand away from Ceres. In his fury, he tried to lunge at Ceres, but Ceres grabbed his hand and twisted it. Due to the pain, Cyrus howled in agony. Ceres then pulled Cyrus towards himself and picked him up, preparing to throw him towards Nay. He shouted that as the captain, Cyrus must stick to his words. The moment Nay unleashed her attack, Ceres threw Cyrus towards the beam, saying that he should be a solid support for the team members. He instructed Cyrus to block the boss's attack with his body and cover his teammates. For the retreat. Cyrus directly barged into the beam of light, allowing everyone else time to retreat. They ran outside while Cyrus got injured by the beam. One teammate got stunned upon seeing this. After that, Ceres furiously looked at Nay, shouting that it's his turn now. Bella shares that she wants to stay. Tyr also agrees with Bella, saying that he too wants to stay and deal with the monster. Bella responds that he doesn't need to stay, as she is staying because of Ceres. Tyr shared that he knows, but he was the first-ranked B-class hero, and he came to eliminate monsters, so he would never run away. He also expressed that he didn't want to take command from that idiot Cyrus again. On the other side, Naya asks Cyrus why he didn't run away even after witnessing her power, insinuating that Cyrus was looking down on her. Nay then goes to unleash the beam again, but Cyrus counters with the swift body slash, causing Nay to tense up and move her hand back. Nai became furious as Cyrus was so fast, but to her surprise, Cyrus started running towards the altar of the demon god's blood. Nay began to wonder why the human was running towards the altar. Soon, she wondered if it could be possible that the guy's goal wasn't to kill her, but rather to obtain the blood of the demon god. Ceres was continuously running towards the altar as he was just a few meters away from it. Nai tried to shout, asking Ceres to stay away from her altar. But at that moment, Bella and Tyre attacked Nay from behind, saying that it was the best opportunity for them. Surprisingly, Nai easily holds both of their swords and then aims towards Ceres, saying that Ceres was really a bastard who had speed like a cockroach. Bella shouts at Nay and asks her not to dare attack Ceres. Both Tyr and Bella try to push Nay back, and just as Nay unleashes her attack, her foot slips a bit, causing her aim to go off. Ceres is also able to dodge the attack due to the wrong aim. Ceres then happily jumps towards the altar, thinking that he almost got what he wanted. But the moment he got close to the altar, he saw a magic array. He got tense seeing it, and just as he touched the array, a blast occurred, and he was deflected from the altar. Nay shares that the magic array was personally created by her, and as long as she was alive, no living creature could cross it. Ceres also agrees with her, realizing that charging straight ahead and forcibly drinking the demon's god blood to detoxify wasn't feasible. They must defeat the boss to proceed. Suddenly, Ceres saw something in the gaps of the walls. On the other hand, Nay threw Bella and Mark, saying that they both were arrogant fools who underestimated their abilities. Both Bella and Tyre fell to the ground with a great impact, getting slightly injured. On the other side, Ceres was stunned to see that it was the same female monster who had just escaped from him, and he wondered how she ended up there. At that time, Nea was trembling and asked Ceres not to make any noise and not to let Nay know that she was there. Nay said that his ritual requires a calm and peaceful demeanor, so after wiping them out, he would quell his anger. Seeing this, Ceres got tense, thinking that Bella was in danger. So before leaving, Ceres placed the kale mushroom in front of Sadiel. Seeing this, Sadiel wonders about the kale mushroom and its ability to recover power. Ceres ran towards Bella, shouting that he was coming. On the other side, Sadiel took the mushroom and started eating. Afterward, she had tears of happiness in her eyes. Ceres' system shows that the female monster Sadiel developed feelings for the host, which caused the host to unlock the weapon unlocking requirements, thus unlocking weapon options. Suddenly, many anonymous cards with question tire signs appear in front of him, and the system shares that first, he has to see the detailed explanation of the weapon introduction rule. On the other hand, Tyre comes in front of Bella to protect her, saying that he will hold it back, and she has to escape quickly. Bella responds that her leg bone cracked again, so he has to escape without her. Here, Ceres shouts at the system to skip the explanation of the rules as he was going to rescue people now, and he didn't have any time to listen to nonsense. So the system skipped that and asks Ceres to choose a card. Ceres randomly chooses a card, and he receives a sword with red color arising around it. The system shares that he has obtained the weapon Exploding Garment Divine Sword. Furiously, Ceres jumps towards Nay, shouting and asking her to try his new weapon power and die. He then attacks her, but she holds his sword with one hand and starts laughing, saying that Ceres fell for it, as both Bella and Tyr were bait, and her real target was none other than him. She then unleashes her light beam attack, asking how he would escape from such a close distance. He shouts and tells her not to underestimate him, as he never said he was going to dodge. He slashes the sword with his full power, but it only manages to give Nay a scratch on her hand. She laughs at him, pointing out that despite exerting all his strength, he had only managed to graze her skin, and not a single drop of blood had been shed. She then explains that it's the difference between monsters and humans, but at that moment, her dress gets torn from above. Seeing this, she gets stunned and embarrassingly asks where her dress disappeared. Even Bella and Tyre were embarrassed to see that Ceres stripped the boss. Ceres was also tense as the monster was really powerful. At that time, his screen shares that the Exploding Garment Divine Sword, when striking with the sword, would cause enemies to have their clothes explode. When the enemy was naked, it would trigger the ultimate move, Divine Sword Descent. Nay got furious with Ceres for what she considered a despicable move, and for that, she was determined to wipe him out anyhow now. Ceres tried slashing her again, but this time she dodged it. Ceres thought that his previous attack hit her palm once, causing her clothes on top to burst open. In other words, he just needs to do it one more time, and he could knock off the robe underneath by attacking her legs. Afterwards, he would knock off her face mask, triggering the ultimate move. So all he needs to do is get close to the boss and keep using the skill Swift Body Slash. Sirius was sure that Nea wouldn't escape, and he could land an attack on her. Suddenly, Sirius's system shows that the host's current magic power was only enough to use Swift Body Slash 6 times, with a 10-second cooldown for the skill. Targeting a fresh enemy would allow an immediate activation of the skill. Hearing this, Sirius got disappointed, considering the skill to be ineffective. The system asks if Sirius wants to turn off the skill, but Sirius responds with a firm no. Sirius now thought that if it's the case, then he would grudgingly give it a shot. He furiously ran towards Nea to attack with Swift Body Slash, but Nea jumped in the air and dodged the attack. Sirius got tense because he again missed the attack. Meanwhile, Nea was wondering why Sirius kept targeting her legs when her upper clothes had already burst open. Did Sirius want to strip away her robe also? Just then, Sirius came again for an attack, but this time Nea furiously kicked at his face. Sirius received a big impact on his face, causing him to fly through the air due to the attack. Somehow, with the help of his sword, he manages to stop himself and lands on the ground. However, he was in deep pain as his nasal bone was almost broken, causing him significant discomfort. However, he then remembers the excruciating pain of his body melting after the toxin breakout, and he realizes that the pain of his broken nasal bone was nothing compared to that. Sirius becomes even more furious and runs towards Nea to attack, shouting that the little pain was nothing at all for him. Slowly, every passing second felt like an eternity as Sirius neared Nea, and as he reached her, the countdown also reached 1. He knew he could attack now. While he was running, Nea tried to attack with her laser beam, but Sirius managed to dodge the laser beam attack. Nea was tense seeing it, so Sirius goes for attacking with Swift Body Slash from a clash, wondering how Nea was going to dodge the attack from so close. Sirius hits her, feeling like he succeeded in landing the attack, but it's actually that he attacked her tail, and she was flying in the air. Nea shares that she never said she was going to run away. She also shouts that if it weren't for her fear of exposing herself, she could make bigger moves, and just with his speed, she could have beaten him to ashes a long time ago. Sirius got tensed at that time as Nea attacked him with the laser beam. He tried to dodge it using a skill and was attempting to attack back, but the screen showed that his skill had a cooldown. Sirius got frustrated, wondering why 10 seconds felt so long, so he had no choice but to face her head-on. Sirius then directly slashed with his sword without using any skill, putting his full power into it. Somehow he managed to deflect the laser beam. A big blast occurs due to the collision of the beam and his sword slash. Even Tyr was stunned to see that and wondered how Sirius actually blocked the boss's attack head-on. It seemed impossible, as his overall combat level was assessed as only F rank before the expedition. Even with combat of that caliber, as a B rank fighter, he was completely unable to intervene. On the other side, Sirius felt happy realizing the real attributes of the sword as they were truly amazing. He laughed and shared with Nea that now he could counter and easily avoid her attacks, making her attacks useless against him. Nea responds that Sirius was right. It's indeed difficult for her to kill him. She then aims towards Bella, confusing Sirius. She explains that it would be easy for her to wipe out the woman with the injured foot. She then goes for unleashing the beam, so Sirius hastily uses the Swift Body Slash and attacks at the nail of the finger by which she was attacking. He succeeds in breaking that nail, but he is too late as she unleashes her attack by that time. Sirius initially felt happy, but upon realizing that Bella was in danger now, he got tensed and ran towards her to save her. Seeing this, Nea laughed and shared that she knows stupid human beings always do those kinds of hero-saving things, which is why heroes always end up being killed by villains from behind. She lastly told him that he had been fooled and attacked with her second hand. On the other hand, Sirius realized that he had been too late to run towards them, and now he had only one choice left. Knowing that the Swift Body Slash would work immediately when he changed the target, he locked Bella as his target and used Swift Body Slash. So with that, he was able to block the attack, but in the process, he breaks the armor of Bella and Mark. Even Tyr was stunned to see that the aftermath shattered his armor. Nea was shocked to see that Sirius dodged it again. Suddenly she noticed that the altar was showing some weird actions, and she realized that she was so preoccupied with the battle that she forgot to add firewood to keep the demon god's blood warm. If she didn't immediately sustain the temperature of the altar, all the effort made up until now would be wasted, and she would have to wait another 100 years. On the other side, Bella starts acting as if she is getting seduced and wonders why she is feeling so weird and why her body feels so hot. His system shows that the agitation value had already reached 91%, indicating that she was already feeling something for Sirius, and now she was locked in, so she had even more attraction for him. Bella gets close to Sirius and holds his face as if she was going to kiss him. Seeing this, Tyr was also stunned. While she was so close to kissing him, Sirius remembers a past memory when Bella was 8 years old. It shows that she looks really scary. She asks what he is looking at, if he's never seen a gorgeous woman before, or if he wants to kiss her. The scene returns to the present where Cirrus tensely moves back, saying that he didn't want to kiss her. Tyr also asks Bella what's wrong with her and whether she was going to kiss Cirrus. Bella starts wondering whether she just took the initiative to kiss Cirrus, that her body moved on its own accord, and she even stuck out her tongue, all while they were still in the midst of the battle. Bella was getting tense and feeling very embarrassed, her whole face turning red. Tyr furiously asks why her face was still so red and why she was sweating. He questions whether she was poisoned or if she was just hallucinating and her body was out of control. Right. He was so sure that she was hallucinating, otherwise she wouldn't have done such things. On the other hand, Nai was focusing on the altar, as once the demon god's blood chills, it would take another 100 years to boil it again. She then pulls the corpses of the monsters and humans, sharing that she didn't want to wait that long again. So this time she must completely burn the blood of the demon god dry. Hearing this, Cirrus got tense and asks whether Nea really wants to burn the blood of the demon god dry. He then thinks that he must stop it quickly, but the boss was tremendously fast. He could hardly strike the boss. Then there's only one thing left, to let his strength increase to the point where the boss couldn't dodge his strike anymore. On the other side, Nea was putting all the corpses into the altar as the firewood, wondering if it should be enough to raise the temperature of the altar to the maximum. Ceres wants to instantly trigger the ultimate move of the explosive garment divine sword and wipe out Nea. So Ceres goes towards Bella and tells her that he has figured out a way to defeat the boss, but he needs her cooperation for a bit. Bella asks what. Ceres responds that as long as she and he do some romantic things like kissing, cuddling, and so on, he could increase his strength and defeat the boss. Hearing this, both Bella and Tyr feel embarrassed. And even Tyr wonders how Ceres could say such vulgar things with a serious expression on his face. Ceres holds Bella's hand and says that he knows it would be hard for her, but he begs her. Bella is so seduced that she doesn't know how to respond, but Tyr interrupts them by pulling Ceres's hands away from holding her. Tyr furiously says that he thinks it all sounds like bullshit. He believes Ceres clearly wants to take advantage of Bella, and they are in the middle of a battle, yet Ceres is thinking about vulgar things. What a pervert Ceres is. Tyr then turns towards Bella to tell her not to trust Ceres, but to his shock, Bella shares with Ceres that she trusts his words. Tyr is fully stunned, and here Bella puts her hands on Ceres's shoulder, telling him that it was also embarrassing for her, so not to take it the wrong way. She only agreed because she wants the monster boss to be defeated, and she actually didn't have any desire to do all those things with him. While Bella was holding Ceres's face, Ceres again remembers the childhood moment when Bella was going to kiss him, and he was scared to see her face and hear her talk. At that time, he shouts that he didn't want to play the game anymore. But remembering that, in the present time, he gets tense, shouting in his mind at Bella not to do that thing with him. So, just as in childhood, he pushed her away. Ceres pushes her in the present time and says that it's a close call. He almost got killed. In that process, his system shows that Tyr took a critical hit. At that time, Bella was wondering why Ceres pushed her away. Ceres got a notification that his level increased by 1 level and all stats had been increased by 5,000 points. Seeing this, Ceres got amazed and realized that it's certainly because of Mark. He got happy that now he didn't need to touch Bella's body and recall that terrible memory. Ceres told Bella that if it's very difficult for her, then they should not do it, and so he was going to defeat the boss. Hearing this, Bella got sad and asked Ceres to wait, suggesting that what if he still couldn't defeat the boss and if he needed her help. Meanwhile, the agitation value of Bella had reached 99%. Ceres responds with a mock face, saying he didn't want her help, and then he runs towards Nea. Hearing a no, Bella feels hurt and asks why. She even wonders why Ceres didn't have any interest in her at all. Tyr then interrupts her and says that he gets it. Ceres is stronger than him. That's why she has a crush on Cyrus. But he still wants to ask. Bella asks if it could be that thing again. The scene shifted to Ceres, where he was wondering that to activate the finishing move, he must hit both the head and the legs at the same time. Earlier, he almost hit the boss's leg, but now all his stats had been increased by 5,000 points, so if he could just find the correct opportunity using Swift Body Slash, he could surely achieve it. On Nea's side, she was confused as the altar was still not connected, wondering why the temperature was still so low. If she didn't fix it soon, the temperature would drop rapidly, so she thought of using the filthy humans to make up for a little bit of warmth. Nai flies towards Ceres and tells him to be proud, as they were going to become the firewood for her sacrifice, which was the highest praise she could offer to them. She then shares that it's time for her to unleash her full power now, so she starts collecting her full power in the middle to attack all at once. Ceres was also stunned to see it, as the ball formed with the power was very big. When Nai furiously attacks towards him, he tries to block it with the help of his sword, but while he was blocking, he was getting the notification that his magic points were decreasing rapidly. Slowly but surely, his magic points were coming towards 0. Finally, He somehow manages to deflect the attack, but his whole magic power nearly reaches 0. Now he only has 11 magic points left, and he can't use any skills due to the low magic value. Ceres got tense, realizing that he had no power left and he didn't know what to do. Nae got happy and told him that she knew his magic power had been depleted and the battle was over now. Ceres was wondering what to do, but to his surprise, Bella came and held his face, saying that he clearly needed her help. She then put his face on her chest, which shocked and heartbroken Mark. Ceres also thinks that Tyr was a good man. Bella also thought that she had already told Tyr a long time ago that she already had someone in her heart, and from childhood to the present moment, it had never changed. Due to her and Tyr getting heartbroken, Ceres got a 5-level increase in his power, and a glow was emanating from his body. Ceres realized that there was a surge of power rising within him. He received a notification that all his stats had been increased by 27,500 points. Seeing this, Nae was shocked, thinking that it was impossible. Ceres should have no room to fight back against her now. Ceres was now glowing intensely, as if he had gained a superior power. Nae said that no matter how much strength he increased, he was still just a mere human being, and in front of monsters, he was nothing but an ant. But while she was talking, Ceres ran towards her and attacked with full power. Nae countered, stating that she could always dodge such attacks. However, Ceres swiftly slashed at her body. Nae didn't realize at the time of Ceres's attack, but when her mask and robe got torn off, she was stunned to see that he had really destroyed her mask. With that attack, Ceres' system showed that the ultimate move, Holy Sword Descent, had been unlocked. Nae furiously shouts at how dare he ruin her face. She then gathers all her power and infuses it into a beam the size of a ball. Ceres attacks Nae as well, and she tries to counterattack. A big blast erupts in the room. The beam also strikes her, and the entire ground is destroyed within seconds, leaving only the line of ground on which Ceres was standing. Even Bella and Tyr are greatly impacted by the blast. After the fog dissipates, Ceres sees that Nae is lying unconscious on the ground, believing he has won. Ceres' system shows a cooldown of 20 seconds for the Divine Sword Descent. He then runs towards the altar, but is shocked to see that the magic altar is still active. He wonders why the magic altar hasn't been deactivated. Suddenly he hears Nae's voice asking if he thought he had already won, as she would never allow filthy humans to touch the demon god's blood. Ceres notices that there are still 9 seconds left on the cooldown. He shouts back at Nae that he will end her in 9 seconds. But then Ceres looks towards Bella and sees that her health is dangerously low, on the brink of death. Nae stands up, shouting that she won't let him have his way as long as she's still breathing. She challenges Ceres to come forward and see who will emerge victorious, humans or monsters. Ceres finds himself in a critical situation, torn between rescuing Bella and Tyr and continuing the fight for the demon god's blood. He prioritizes Bella and Mark, neglecting Nae. Ceres swiftly flies towards the entrance to leave the room. Nae is momentarily relieved as they depart, thinking that humans are indeed foolish. On the other hand, Ceres shouts at the map to open and find the shortest route to the exit, as he needs to get to the hospital as quickly as possible now. Just as he gets out of the room, he is attacked by monsters. Ceres quickly gets ready to fight them. Until then, Bella remains unconscious, recalling her childhood memories. She remembers everyone laughing at her, mocking her appearance and questioning who would want to kiss her. Bella still longs to play the house game, but others sarcastically suggest she play the role of a gorilla instead. At that time, Ceres was approaching her, and some children tried to warn him not to go near her, saying he would get infected and turn into an ugly freak. To their surprise, Ceres slaps one of the boys. The scene shifts to the present time, where Ceres easily defeats the monster with a swift body-slash attack. Meanwhile, in Bella's dream, the child who was slapped by Ceres is crying. Ceres tells Bella that the game isn't over yet, explaining that because he's a boy and she's a girl, he should play the dad, and she should play the mom. He promises to take responsibility for her. In the present time, after defeating the monster, Ceres reassures Bella that she will be fine. Meanwhile, on Nae's side, she looks at the altar, realizing she needs to add more firewood to maintain the temperature and cannot allow it to decrease. So, when she had no other option, Nae decided to sacrifice herself for that cause. On the other side, Ceres was battling monsters that stood in his way to stop him. Meanwhile, in the boss room, Nae shattered into pieces as she threw herself onto the altar as firewood. Before dying completely, she shouts to the holy demon god that she can no longer serve him personally. Meanwhile, Ceres fights with the dragon monster and uses his sword to attack. But as soon as he defeated the dragon monster, his exploding garment divine sword disappeared. His system notified him that the enemy had been defeated and the weapon had returned to the system. The system indicated that the weapon would be available again in 12 hours. So Ceres thought it didn't matter anymore, as they were almost at the exit. The scene shifts to the outside of the dungeon exit, where Ceres and some of his teammates are shown. Everyone is overjoyed that they made it out of the dungeon alive. While Cyrus was thinking about how close he came to dying in the underground dungeon, he reflects that even his dragon-scale armor was shattered, all because of that damned Cyrus. He speculates that Cyrus should have been defeated by the dungeon boss by now. Suddenly, someone sees Cyrus returning with Bella and Tyre in hand, and they inform Cyrus that Cyrus is alive. Cyrus is stunned by this news, and Cyrus looks very serious as well. Cyrus pulls out a sword from one of his teammates and shouts, questioning how Cyrus dared to follow them secretly and attempt to escape. He demands an explanation from Cyrus, asking how he could defy his orders and try to run away. As the captain, Cyrus declares that Cyrus has lost his qualifications to be part of the expedition team, and states that he won't consider using the guild's medical resources to prolong Cyrus's life any longer. Cyrus then shouts that he's going to make sure of it right then and there and prepares to attack. However, to everyone's surprise, Cyrus kicks Cyrus in the face and uses him as a stepping stone to jump forward, stating that he doesn't have time to waste on him. Cyrus appeared to be unconscious, while the others were shocked and shouting at Cyrus, questioning how he dared to attack their captain. One member shouted and informed everyone that it was serious because Cyrus had kicked the captain and caused him to faint. They needed to hurry and take the captain to the hospital. The scene then shifted to the guild hospital, where the ward boys were seen running with Bella and Tyr on stretchers, shouting about an emergency case. Cyrus felt relieved after ensuring Bella and Tyr were delivered to the hospital safely. He decided to quickly return to the dungeon because he was just one step away from obtaining the demon god's blood to cure the poison. The scene shifted to the dungeon where a red-colored substance was emanating from the altar. Gradually, it rose up and began taking the shape of a humanoid figure. Sadiel observed everything and wondered what kind of entity Boss Nay had summoned when sacrificing herself, as he gazed upon his transformed appearance. It seems like Nea was living under the identity of Bio in front of everyone, and they didn't know she was actually a girl. The red-colored substance formed into a dress-like shape, and a hand emerged from inside. As the hand emerged, the atmosphere grew intense. Feeling the sensation, Sadiel became tense and described it as a chilling feeling, as if she were being stabbed by countless needles into her bones. A monster with a human appearance emerged from the red substance and remarked that the scene felt very familiar, as if it were truly her own domain. When she first appeared, Azathoth had a boyish body but long hair like a girl. Sadiel, feeling the intense sensation, tensely tried to run away from there, thinking that the place was becoming too dangerous. Azathoth felt Sadiel's presence and approached the wall, pushing it with a finger. With her touch, the entire wall started collapsing, startling the monsters standing on the floor above as they wondered why their floor was exploding. Azathoth had caused this to reveal the person she sensed. After falling, every monster was hurt, and speculated whether Boss Nay had caused the collapse. However, one of them shouted for everyone to look up, pointing out that the underground dungeon had collapsed and they could now see the sky above. They speculated whether the collapse was caused by Boss Nay, but quickly dismissed the idea, realizing it required someone with greater power than Boss Nay possessed. While they debated, Azathoth interjected, stating that Nay was dead and that she now needed a servant. Hearing this, the monsters grew tense and debated whether they should escape or stay. One monster even approached Azathoth, stating that their lineage had endured over time due to their immense power, and they were willing to follow someone even more powerful than Boss Nay. Everyone else starts clamoring that they also want to serve, but Azathoth shouts that they are all too ugly and proceeds to destroy them. Azathoth declares that she doesn't want ugly minions. She then walks towards Sadiel, complimenting her appearance, and instructs Sadiel to look up and open her mouth. With tears in her eyes, Sadiel opens her mouth, and Azathoth pours her blood into it, instructing her to drink. After drinking, Sadiel feels a sudden change in her body, sensing a different sensation as if her body is beginning to heal itself. Azathoth approaches Sadiel and explains that Sadiel's body should be feeling very comfortable because her blood has the ability to repair all damage, fortify the immune system, and enhance strength. Azathoth adds that during the digestion process, it could bring Sadiel immense pleasure. Azathoth then tells Sadiel that it's getting dark, and advises her to go find a clean room waiting for her. Sadiel, unsure of what to say, agrees by nodding her head. The scene then shifts to the guild's headquarters, where it shows Darren holding Cyrus's head. Darren, visibly furious, demands to know what Cyrus said about the mission failing. Cyrus apologizes to Darren and explains that if he loses his position as captain, Darren would have to take over and audit the remaining assets of the guild's investigation team. He urges Darren to come up with a solution to the situation. Cyrus also tries to convey that if it's discovered they have been secretly selling the guild's resources, it would be a serious issue. However, Darren pushes Cyrus back and shouts at him to keep quiet, stating that he already knows that. Darren then asks Cyrus if he just said someone in his team went against his orders. Cyrus confirms this and mentions that the person's name is Cyrus. Darren checks the document and sees that Cyrus is an F-rank hero. He instructs Cyrus to place all responsibility for the failure on Ceres and orders that he be sentenced to death for desertion. The scene shifts to the dungeon, where Cyrus is confused to see its collapsed state. He rushes towards the altar to check if his antidote is still intact, but he is shocked to see that it's empty. Meanwhile, Sadiel quietly waits for Azathoth, sitting in place. Suddenly, Azathoth puts her hands on Sadiel's shoulders, prompting Sadiel to ask Azathoth not to do it. Surprisingly, Azathoth hugs Sadiel from behind, and Sadiel is stunned. She feels something soft touching her back. Sadiel, who initially thought Azathoth was a boy, becomes confused as she tries to reconcile this perception with the soft sensation she is feeling. Out of nowhere, Azathoth whispers something in Sadiel's ear, causing her to be seduced by it and move aside from the hug. Embarrassed, Sadiel turns back and is stunned to see Azathoth, whose appearance has suddenly changed to that of a proper girl. Azathoth asks Sadiel if she doesn't like hugs. Confused, Sadiel asks how Azathoth could change like that. Azathoth explains that there's nothing surprising about it, as at night she loses all her strength and reverts to her true self, a girl. Azathoth also explains that during the night, Sadiel must protect her and eliminate anyone with ill intentions towards her. She warns Sadiel not to attempt to harm her or escape, as consuming her blood during the day allows Azathoth to resonate with Sadiel's blood, potentially causing Sadiel's body to dissolve instantly even at night. Sadiel is compelled to obediently listen to her instructions. On the other hand, Ceres is tense as he searches everywhere in the dungeon for the blood of the demon god, but can't find it. He wonders if the blood of the demon god must be hidden somewhere in the dungeon, holding on to hope. Ceres asks the system to open the map so he can scout every corner of the dungeon thoroughly. Here, Azathoth explains to Sadiel that she doesn't want things to end up like this, but her heart is sealed within the Heroes Guild, preventing her from being in her complete form. As a result, at night, she transforms into a weak human. But as long as she waits until daytime and restores the power of the demon god, they will head to the Heroes Guild headquarters to retrieve her heart. When that happens, every monster in the world, whether it's day or night, will once again bow to the might of her power. Suddenly, Sadiel hears footsteps approaching, so she moves to go and investigate. Azathoth stops Sadiel and instructs her that during any fights, she must stay within a 5-kilometer radius. Azathoth warns that if Sadiel exceeds this range, she will consider it an attempt to escape and threaten to dissolve her body. Azathoth asks Sadiel again if she understands, and Sadiel responds with a yes. On the other side, Ceres' system informs him that the blood of the demon god is in Neye's underground dungeon. Ceres is happy to learn that it's indeed in the dungeon. Ceres runs towards the room where Azathoth and Sadiel are staying, thinking it's the last room of the dungeon he hasn't checked yet. Before he reaches the room, Sadiel hides beside the door, ready to attack him. When Sadiel attacks Ceres with a kick, he easily dodges it. Sadiel is shocked to realize it's the same human she met earlier that morning. Meanwhile, Azathoth starts feeling strange and wonders what's happening as her body twitches unexpectedly. This usually only occurs when she's close to her heart. Sadiel asks why Ceres came back when Neye was already dead. She urges him to leave the dungeon before daylight. Ceres is stunned to see Sadiel's body, which has regained enough strength to fight. He then asks Sadiel if she enjoyed the mushroom-flavored treat he gave her. Hearing this, she gets embarrassed and responds that it wasn't tasty at all. It was the most disgusting mushroom she had ever eaten in her life. She tells him to get lost, but Ceres' system shows that Sadiel's favorability rating is at 71%. Ceres is happy to see this and comments that she is blushing, and her favorability towards him is higher than he expected. Before he could finish speaking, she kicks towards him, saying he was talking nonsense and she didn't have any liking towards him at all. She kicks again, this time hitting her own face, and she crushes it, expressing that her feelings towards humans were just disgusting. But suddenly, to her surprise, his body disappeared from beneath her leg. She is stunned, and when she turns around, she sees that he is running towards the room. Sadiel wonders how he managed to escape after she clearly stepped on his face. Ceres explains that he has urgent matters to deal with, so they can play later. As he reaches the door, he senses that the blood of the demon god is behind it. Before he can open the door, Azathoth opens it herself, and accidentally, Ceres puts his hand on her chest. He is shocked to see a human girl there in the dungeon. Realizing his hand is on her chest, he quickly retracts it. Sadiel asks Azathoth why she came out. Due to Ceres placing his hand on her chest, she furiously grabs his hand and squeezes it. Out of nowhere, a spark of light emanates from that spot, and she is stunned to see that it's her heart. She then wonders why her heart was in that part of a human. Ceres pushed Azathoth back and tensely asked her to let him go, questioning what she was doing with him. Ceres' system then revealed that the human girl was his blood of the demon god. Ceres was stunned and wondered how his antidote had turned into a human. Without thinking, he grabbed her hand and made a cut on her palm to drink her blood. He then drinks her blood, wondering if her blood could be his antidote. Upon this act of Ceres, Azathoth feels strange and twitches. After drinking the blood, Sirius's system shows that his poison hadn't been cured, and his remaining lifespan was 101 days. Ceres asks and wonders how her blood could be ineffective. Azathoth smiles, thinking that since she had turned into a human, her blood was naturally ineffective. Just then, Sadil interrupts them by kicking Sirius's hand and asking him to release Azathoth. But Sirius easily dodged the kick and stepped back. Azathoth then wonders how her heart was absorbed by a human and transformed into an essence stored in his filthy body. So, now if she wants to regain her power, she had to forcibly absorb that part back into her body from him. After doing so, his body would dissolve into a pool of blood as punishment for using her power without her permission. Ceres then wondered if other liquids from her body might have the antidote effect. He decided to first take her away and then consider it further. As he moved slowly towards Azathoth, to his surprise, something emerged from underground. It was actually a monster named Ghana, who was of boss level. Ghana happily shouted and shared with Azathoth that even from thousands of miles away, she sensed her presence, and the sensation bewildered her senses, stirring inside her. Ghana also mentioned that she had never removed the bell Azathoth bestowed upon her, proving her unwavering love for him. Ghana then asked Azathoth if she could devour her now, stating that after that, Azathoth would only belong to her. Sadil was stunned by this, while Azathoth looked tense. But suddenly, to her surprise, Sirius picked her up in his hands and started running towards the hole in the wall, jumping outside of it. While jumping, he wondered how a boss-ranked monster could appear in the dungeon so suddenly. So he thought that he must take Azathoth to a safe place first. Ghana also jumped through the hole, following Sirius, shouting at him to give Azathoth back to her and not to run away. The scene then shifted to a few seconds later at the Heroes Guild, where Sirius had taken Azathoth, thinking it was a safe place. He was relieved that he had finally managed to lose Ghana, who had been chasing him. In the hall, Sirius was sitting beside Azathoth. Azathoth tensely asked where he had brought her. Sirius responded that it was the Heroes Guild in Zone Z, his home. Hearing this, she became happy, thinking that if it were true, her plans would become much easier. After retrieving her power into her body, she could go on a wiping spree, and they all would pay the price for dealing with her heart. So Azathoth stood up, held Sirius's face, and with a helpless expression told him that she had been cursed by a terrifying monster, and if she didn't find a human to mate with soon, she would die. So, please, save her. Sirius responded that he was a noble and upright hero, and he would never exploit someone's vulnerability. But still, Azathoth jumps over Ceres and, with a sad face, shares that she was in deep pain at that moment, pleading with him to save her. Hearing this, Ceres became tense and wondered how he could have encountered such a shameful situation. His inner voice told him that he must never exploit others' vulnerabilities in that manner. Otherwise, his righteous soul would experience unbearable anguish. But soon he thought that, as a hero, it was his responsibility to help those in pain. He couldn't just sit back and do nothing. Ceres then reached out to Azathoth, thinking that he was willing to sacrifice himself to save her and bear the pain from the depths of his heart alone. On the other hand, as Azathoth leaned in for a kiss, she thought that once she extracted his essence and regained her power, she would wipe out every single one of them. But as she got very close, Sirius saw something between her legs and, confused, asked if it was a tail and how she had one. Ceres then remembered that a tail was supposed to be at the back, and Azathoth's tail was in the front, meaning it was a male private part. Realizing this, Sirius was stunned and tensely pushed Azathoth back. He was so scared that he moved backward, and in the process, Yug fell out of his pocket. Sirius tensely asked Azathoth why she had a sword between her legs. Azathoth came very close to Sirius and seductively said that he had already agreed to save her. At that time, Azathoth was aware that daybreak was approaching and her body was starting to change. This meant that Azathoth had a dual personality. During the day, her body would become that of a boy, while at night, she would be a pure girl in human form. So she again put her hand on his leg and was about to kiss him, saying that Sirius couldn't go back on his words. Sirius was tense and didn't know what to do, but to his relief, an unexpected scene occurred as Yug started transforming. Azathoth even asked in confusion what was happening with his pet. Within seconds, Yug completely reverted to her monster form and started saying that she was so hungry. She was starving. Yug again asked for help from Sirius, addressing him as her master. Sirius saw an opportunity and told Azathoth that he believed Yug needed his help more urgently, so he would assist Yug first, and then it would be Azathoth's turn. Azathoth was now at a loss for words, unsure of how to respond. Here, Yug was wondering that Sirius's pocket was so small that she couldn't even stretch fully. Meanwhile, Sirius was running towards the kitchen, saying that if Yug was hungry, he would make something for her to eat. In the kitchen, he started cooking, all the while wondering that somehow he had found some time under the guise of cooking. However, he pondered what he should do next. If he didn't save Azathoth, she would truly die, and he had no means to defend himself either. So he questioned himself if he really had to mate with Azathoth. He soon started getting frustrated as he couldn't decide. While he was cooking, Azathoth also approached from behind, thinking that she could wait until morning to regain her powers. Ceres noticed her but pretended he hadn't seen her. Seeing this, Azathoth realized that he didn't want to do what she had in mind. She thought that if Ceres didn't want to cooperate, she would have to resort to forcing him into doing strange things. Out of nowhere, Azathoth got close to Ceres and was about to place her hand on that part, but Ceres quickly took the food off the plate and started running outside towards Yug. He said he had finished preparing the food and needed to go outside to help Yug first. Azathoth became furious because her human body was too weak to overpower Ceres. When Ceres exited the kitchen, he noticed Yug's tail emerging from the bathroom, prompting him to investigate. When he looked inside, he was surprised to see Yug drinking toilet cleaner. He wondered if she would be okay after consuming it. To his surprise, Yug was actually happy and smiling, saying that it was delicious. In the next scene, Yug was eating the food, so Azathoth came to Ceres and insisted that he had already prepared food for Yug, and now it was her turn. Ceres asked Azathoth to calm down and listen to him first. To his surprise, Azathoth became wild and shouted that she didn't want to hear any excuses. She wanted to do it now. Just then, his system showed that the time limit for returning weapons had arrived. While Azathoth was still wild, she forcefully tore off Ceres's clothes into pieces, leaving him stunned and with only a scrap of cloth remaining. Azathoth, blushing, approached Ceres slowly. Meanwhile, Ceres's system alerted him that he had to complete the mission, which involved running through the streets and waving to 33 people. Seeing this, he became furious and shouted that he would never do such things. Suddenly, his system warned him that if the host couldn't complete the mission, he would be pulled back into the Advanced Paradise in reverse. A door appeared behind Ceres and slowly began to open. Ceres waited anxiously to see what was behind the door. When it finally opened, he was shocked to see many boy dummies asking him to come and play with them. Ceres shouted that it seemed even more terrifying than running through the streets without clothes. Ceres started to think about how such a small piece of cloth could provide him cover. Horizontally, it wasn't long enough to cover his waist properly. Everything behind would be exposed. Standing up with both hands pressing the front and back, there was no way he could wave to passers-by. Ceres got frustrated and started crying, realizing that the cloth simply wouldn't cover him properly, and no matter what, he would still be exposed. Without thinking, he ran towards the door and told Yug to take care of Azathoth, explaining that he was going outside for a few minutes. Seeing Ceres run outside without clothes, Yug was amazed, wondering if that's how humans go out. Azathoth also felt sad, realizing she would have to wait until morning. Yug then asked Azathoth if she wanted to drink the toilet cleaner since it tasted good, but Azathoth declined with a firm no. Outside the room, Ceres covered his face with the piece of cloth, thinking it was the best option to avoid showing his face to others. He then ran towards the barbecue plaza, knowing there would be many people there at that time. And to add to Ceres's troubles, when he arrived at the barbecue plaza, the monster Ghana also sensed his presence in the area and arrived there. She was frustrated that Ceres had managed to run away so quickly. Ceres, upon reaching the location, started waving his hands to attract everyone's attention. A girl was the first to notice him and began shouting that there was a pervert, calling for someone to come and help. More people came out upon hearing the scream, but Ceres managed to slowly accomplish his task amidst the commotion. Now that he had completed 1 to 3 of his mission with only 7.5 seconds left, Ceres started getting chased by some men because he was running without clothes in the city and heading towards a more crowded area. The scene shifted to Ceres's home, where Sadiel appeared at the window. Yug became tense upon seeing someone at the window. Sadiel was relieved upon seeing Azathoth and then warned them that they were in the city of the Brave Heroes Guild, so if they were caught, it could be very dangerous. Sadiel urged them to hurry up and leave. Azathoth responded that since it was almost morning, there was no need for them to hide anymore. She then ordered Sadiel to go and find Ceres. Azathoth instructed Sadiel that when the sun rose, he should let her blood fall on the ground, and she would find her way to him. Sadiel responded with a yes, and started running to find Ceres. As she ran, she wondered about what would happen to Ceres after reclaiming the essence, if humans would turn into blood. This thought made her tense. Suddenly, she heard everyone shouting something, and when she looked down from above, she was shocked to see Ceres running without clothes with some people chasing him. On the road, Ceres continued to wave his hands at others, surprising the people who were chasing him that he was still greeting people despite being pursued. His system showed that he had completed 2/3 of his mission, which made him happy as there were only a few people left to greet. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a large spider monster appeared and attacked the people chasing Ceres. Ceres heard the sounds of destruction and turned back to see what had happened. He was surprised to witness the scene unfolding before him. Other people, upon seeing the monster, urged everyone to evacuate the area and called for reinforcements. On the other hand, Cirrus was confused about how a monster could appear at such a critical moment. Despite his confusion, he decided to confront and fight the monster. Cirrus asked the system to open up, but it informed him that during the weapon return mission, he couldn't use the system as everything was reset to the initial rank F. Upon hearing this, Cirrus was shocked and wondered what was going on. In the city, an announcement was made that a monster had been spotted, prompting everyone to evacuate. At the same time, it was shown that a boy named Sam had captured a piercing spider by holding its leg and was asking someone to give him a weapon. To his surprise, Cirrus approached and shook hands with Sam, congratulating him. Sam furiously asked if Cirrus was out of his mind for greeting during the battle, and whether the monster had knocked off his pants. Due to Cirrus's incident, Sam lost his grip, and the piercing spider was about to attack him. Luckily, a hero of A rank named Kajak arrived and swiftly defeated the piercing monster, saving Sam. Kajak asked Sam if it was so difficult for C-rank heroes to defeat such small spiders. Alongside Kajak was Charlton, the vice president of the Heroes Guild, who was also present. Charlton praised Kajak, acknowledging that his actions counted as being on the battlefield. He then emphasized the need to quickly escort Kajak back. However, Kajak reassured Charlton not to worry, stating that with their security team, no monster could harm or get close to him. Suddenly, Ghana arrived, sensing Cirrus's essence. Upon seeing her, everyone became tense, and Kajak immediately ordered everyone to ensure Mr. Charlton's safety. Kajak attempted to attack Ghana with his sword, but she swiftly dodged the attack, and then she touched her face to his hand, asking if that was all he wanted to get close to her. Suddenly, Kajak's hand started melting, and his entire body began to burn slowly. Kajak howled in pain, realizing the poison's effects, and warned everyone to stay back and not touch Ghana. Ghana laughed, finding humans fragile for being unable to withstand even a small amount of poison. Another hero instructed the others to take Mr. Charlton away while he would hold Ghana back. Ghana smiled and asked if he wanted to hold her, mentioning that they had underestimated her. On the other side, Cirrus was just one person away from completing his mission when another hero was burned by Ghana. Poisoning him, she remarked that the noises humans made when poisoned were truly pleasurable for her. As the hero died and his scream stopped, Ghana remarked that she hadn't heard enough screaming yet. She slowly moved towards Charlton, who began shouting for help. Cirrus arrived and demanded that Ghana leave Charlton alone. He urged Charlton to look at him, and as Charlton did, Cirrus's mission was completed and his clothes returned to him. Cirrus then asked the system to open up, and it presented him with the option to choose a card. Upon selecting a card, the system revealed that Cirrus had acquired a weapon called the Silent Divine Finger. The weapon appears to have a special ability where when Cirrus touches surrounding objects, they transform into the enemy's body and he can feel their sensations. When the enemy screams from the bottom of their heart, it triggers the activation of the silent force associated with the weapon. This ability suggests a powerful and potentially transformative aspect of the weapon in combat or strategic situations. Upon seeing Cirrus, Ghana became pleased, identifying him as the human associated with her lord, Azathoth. She ran towards him, demanding to know where he had hidden Azathoth. Cirrus responded that he would hand Azathoth over to her. Ghana replied that if that was the case, she would eliminate Cirrus first, and then locate Azathoth on her own. Cirrus locked Ghana as his target, and when Ghana attacked him, he dodged and moved away, touching the ground in the process. The moment Cirrus touched the ground, Ghana felt a strange sensation, feeling as though someone was touching her body. This sensation embarrassed her, causing her to wonder why she felt that way. She screamed in response to the touch, and her scream value reached 12%, triggering the silent force. The force inflicted significant pain on Ghana, stunning her momentarily. She covered her chest and wondered if Cirrus had indeed touched her chest just moments ago. She interpreted the sudden impact after her scream as an invisible force, likely Cirrus's ability. Though not fatal, it caused her pain, confirming her suspicion of Cirrus's capability. Ghana declared that her body and mind belonged solely to Lord Azathoth. She stated that anyone else who touched her besides Lord Azathoth would face death, and she vowed never to make such a betraying sound again. Ghana expelled all her toxins from her body and gathered them in her hand. She then informed Cirrus that she would present his charred corpse as an apology to Lord Azathoth. Cirrus became tense as Ghana launched her attack, declaring Cirrus to die in pain as the price for touching her body. Despite Cirrus managing to dodge the initial attack, Ghana continued to pursue him, attempting to grab him from the ground. At that moment, Cirrus placed his hand on the ground and rubbed it. Ghana screamed again from the intense sensation she felt in her armpit, and this time her scream value reached 43%. As a result, she was struck by a powerful force, causing her significant distress. Cirrus also wondered if the sensation was like he had just brushed against her armpit. Meanwhile, Ghana was in pain and realized that the sensation really hurt, noting that it was several times stronger than the previous one. She wondered how she ended up making a sound again when she had decided to hold back. But this time, it was her armpit that got touched. It felt so itchy, and for a moment, it brought her joy, realizing that even Cirrus was capable of triggering such sensations, much like Lord Azathoth. Ghana held the bell that Azathoth had bestowed upon her and sadly apologized, wondering what was happening to her. She questioned how Cirrus, a mere human, could dare to have thoughts similar to Azathoth. She found it disgusting because lowly humans could never compare to the nobility of Azathoth. Ghana hid herself to snap back to her senses, and once composed, she smiled and asked if now Azathoth would forgive her. On the other side, Cirrus was shocked to see Ghana hitting herself and interpreted it as a sign that she might have some mental issues. Ghana remarked to Cirrus that his attack moves were strange, and she declared that she would get serious now. She then took out her sword and prepared to attack. Seeing Ghana take out her sword, Cirrus wondered if the location where she concealed her weapon was even more peculiar. He interpreted the situation, noting that the first time it was her chest, the second time her armpit against the wall, so logically, if he calculated based on the distance ratio, her next move would likely be aimed at his back. For some reason, Cirrus started running away, prompting Ghana to chase after him, shouting why he was running now when it was too late. She jumped at Cirrus to attack, but he managed to dodge the attack. Cirrus shouted that his agility was higher than hers, and he wouldn't let her catch him off guard. Ghana responded by acknowledging she knew, then threw a spider web towards Cirrus. He became ensnared in the web and struggled to escape by moving around. Ghana stated that he wouldn't be able to break free, and now he had to die. She went in for the attack, but just then, Cirrus managed to free his hand from the spider web and touched the ground. After touching it, he wondered if he was correct, noting that the sensation he was feeling was akin to touching the inner part of her thigh. Ghana once again felt intrigued and tense due to Cirrus's strange skill. This time, she put her hand over her mouth, determined not to scream. Cirrus attempted to tickle her more, but she remained resolute in not making a sound under any circumstances. She succeeded, with the scream percentage only reaching 1%, indicating the force was not very strong. Ghana was relieved and happy that she managed to hold back, realizing that as long as she didn't scream, she wouldn't be vulnerable to further attacks. When Ghana looked at Cirrus, she was surprised to see that he had escaped from the spiderweb and slipped away. To her surprise, Cirrus responded from behind that he hadn't said he was going to slip away. Ghana smiled, considering Cirrus's decision not to run away as a foolish move. She then placed something in her mouth while explaining that she had figured out all his attack moves, and the chance he had to escape just now was the only one. Now, she was determined to dominate him single-handedly. When she removed her hand from her mouth, it was revealed that she had covered her mouth with spiderweb. Her idea was that by sealing her mouth shut with spider's web, she wouldn't make any screaming sounds, rendering Cirrus's attacks useless against her. Cirrus asked Ghana if the spot she felt was on the inner part of her thigh, right? Upon hearing this, she became embarrassed and frustrated, thinking Cirrus was a disgusting human paying such close attention to her body. Cirrus understood from her silence and explained that after locking her up, he arranged everything according to the proportions of her body. He then said that next up was the battle where one side completely overwhelms the other, and he would launch a fierce attack on her body to find the sensitive spots or points that would drive her crazy. Ghana then thought that his attack had been anticipated by her, so no matter which part of her body was attacked, she wouldn't scream. Cirrus rubbed his hands on the walls. Ghana knew it was coming, so she somehow endured it and didn't scream. Cirrus was also surprised to see that there was no reaction at all. Meanwhile, Ghana was tense, realizing that the feeling was completely different from before and seemed to be coming from the bottom of his heart, but somehow she held back. She still talks about Lord Azathoth as if the feeling were from the bottom of her heart, but she endured it and didn't betray Azathoth. This level of pleasure still couldn't be compared to Azathoth. Cirrus again rubbed his hands on the walls and then rubbed them together, asking Ghana to enjoy it. Ghana was getting seduced and wondered why the feeling directly rushed into her mind. On the other side, Charlton was noticing everything and saw that the female monster started to wriggle again, which was amazing. Charlton wondered what kind of trick it was that made the female monsters emit those moaning sounds, and he also wanted to learn that technique. On the other hand, Ghana wondered how Cirrus was able to do it, as the feeling was coming from the bottom of her heart. And it's so intense, like she had never felt before. Suddenly, she noticed that the images of Lord Azathoth were starting to blur in her eyes. She became determined not to let it happen, as she must stop everything. There couldn't be such thoughts anymore because she belonged to Lord Azathoth, and she needed to compose herself. Cirrus was also shocked to see that Ghana still hadn't made any screaming sounds, as it seemed the excitement wasn't enough yet. Ghana then infused all the toxins from her body into her weapon and rushed towards Cirrus to attack, thinking that she wouldn't fall down easily. Seeing her approach, Cirrus moved closer to the wall and rubbed his hands together, inviting Ghana to appreciate his skills. This caused Ghana to tremble again and wriggle on the ground as she endured it. She became tense, feeling overwhelmed by the intense sensation, unable to move even a bit. So she thought that she had to eliminate Cirrus quickly. Otherwise, Lord Azathoth would disappear from her heart. With determination, she threw her sword towards Cirrus to strike him down. But Cirrus somehow dodged the attack. Ghana already anticipated that Cirrus would dodge it, so she released the toxins from her sword when it was close to Cirrus. She thought Cirrus wouldn't be able to dodge the toxin in such a cramped space. And when the toxins cleared from the space, Ghana realized that at such a close distance, Cirrus wouldn't have had a chance to escape. Now that his entire body was surely tainted with her toxins, there was no doubt he would perish. Suddenly, to her shock, she heard Cirrus's voice saying that just like the spider web trick she used on him earlier, deceive and strike, he wouldn't fall for the same trick again. Looking up, Ghana was amazed to see that even in that situation, Cirrus had managed to jump onto the rooftop. Cirrus then shouted that now it's his turn, and he jumped off from the rooftop into the cramped space, rubbing both his hands on the walls from above to the ground. As Cirrus descended, Ghana felt a much stronger sensation, intensifying with each passing moment. Ghana tried to hold on as the sensation was supposed to end in a few seconds, but due to the height of the walls, the sensation persisted longer than expected. She became tense, realizing it hadn't ended yet. She was thinking that everything had happened in a flash last time, so why wasn't it ending this time? She hoped for it to end soon. But now her limit was reaching its end, and finally, before screaming, she apologized to Lord Azathoth as she couldn't hold on anymore. She screamed with all her power, and Cirrus's system showed that the scream value was 100% this time. Even the locket that Azathoth had bestowed upon her got broken, causing a powerful blast in the surrounding area of Ghana. In the blast, the force depleted Ghana's magic energy slowly until her magic value reached 0. She transformed into a mini spider. Cirrus's system returned the weapon, indicating that the enemy had been defeated, so it was retrieved. Cirrus walked towards Ghana and picked her up in his hand. His system showed that Ghana's favorability towards him was 100%. Cirrus's system indicated that a passive conquest had been unlocked, and after defeating the boss, he would obtain the boss's exclusive skill. So the skill Cirrus acquired was Toxic Fusion, which allowed him to attach potent poisons to weapons. Cirrus wondered if he could also attach poisons from within his own body onto weapons. The scene shifted to Sadiel, where she used her blood to summon Azathoth. As her blood dropped on the ground, Azathoth disappeared from the room, stunning Yug as he witnessed it. Upon being summoned, Azathoth appeared in his human form. From now on in the story, we will refer to him as a man. Azathoth asked Sadiel where Cirrus was. Tensely, Sadiel responded with an apology, admitting that she had lost track of Cirrus. Hearing this, Azathoth was stunned. He explained that the human body he inhabited was originally her heart, and if he didn't retrieve it, he would become a powerless human again at night. Despite this revelation, Sadiel confirmed that she had indeed lost track of Cirrus. Suddenly, Azathoth heard distant sounds from the city and sensed that it was the power of the system. Without hesitation, he flew towards that area. Sadiel watched tensely as he departed. The scene returns to Cirrus, where his system shows that he unlocked a new skill called Placement, allowing him to teleport conquered monsters back to their home. As Cirrus uttered Placement, Ghana disappeared from his hand and teleported to Yug's room. Yug was confused when something hit her head, and upon seeing it was a spider, she reacted with surprise. On Cirrus's side, Azathoth suddenly grabbed him, and before Cirrus could react, Azathoth captured him by locking his head. Azathoth then stared at Cirrus, expressing disappointment that Cirrus had promised to save him but fled midway, which greatly angered him. Seeing Azathoth in his human form, Cirrus became certain that Azathoth was indeed a man and the entity who had deceived him about the curse. Azathoth responded affirmatively. Cirrus then asked Azathoth what he wanted now. Azathoth asked Cirrus to continue fulfilling his unfulfilled promise. Cirrus responded that he had no interest in men. Azathoth then changed his appearance and asked Cirrus how about now. Cirrus tensely turned his face back and was shocked to see Azathoth had transformed into a character resembling a girl wearing a cat-themed dress. Azathoth even said, "Meow," asking if now Cirrus would be interested. Cirrus vehemently denied and shouted that no matter what form Azathoth took, he still wouldn't be interested because he didn't like men. Cirrus attempted to punch Azathoth, but Azathoth blocked it by grabbing his fist and twisted it slightly, causing Cirrus pain. Azathoth persisted, mentioning how humans were often interested in things like cat ears and black stockings, suggesting they could have fun together. However, despite his efforts, he was rejected, which saddened him deeply. He hinted that he might have to resort to more drastic measures. Azathoth licked Cirrus's finger, which stunned him. Tensely, Cirrus asked Azathoth if he was serious, instructing him not to lick. Azathoth expressed happiness at the taste of Cirrus's finger licking. Cirrus attempted to run away, but Azathoth stopped him with his power, asserting that Cirrus couldn't escape no matter what he tried. Azathoth then flew into the air, mentioning that he had already surpassed the system's level long ago. So, if Cirrus wanted to run away, Azathoth encouraged him to do so as much as he wanted, because in the end it would lead to the same outcome. Azathoth then asked Cirrus if he would try to lock him down and boost his own speed. Cirrus responded that he didn't want to use the system to target men, as that would cross a moral boundary for him as a human being. Soon after, Azathoth lifted Cirrus's body upwards and jumped over him, stating that the blood in Cirrus's veins was his antidote, and implying that Cirrus had always desired him. Azathoth also told Cirrus that if he behaved and followed his lead, he would cure him. Furious, Cirrus responded to Azathoth that if the only way to obtain the blood of the demon god for the antidote was to do it with him, then he would rather let his body melt and decay, as he would never engage in such acts with a man. Azathoth became furious when Cirrus resisted him, and he prepared to attack, stating that Cirrus was not obedient and needed to be disciplined. He threatened to force himself into Cirrus's body, claiming that Cirrus would beg for it. Azathoth then touched Cirrus's back, intending to return Cirrus's power, system, and heart to their original master's body. To his surprise, his magic didn't work and disappeared instead. Confused, Azathoth wondered what had happened and why his magic had failed. Cirrus's system indicated that it refused to return, rendering all of Azathoth's attacks against Cirrus useless. Following this, Cirrus's system asked him if he wanted to sacrifice 50% of his life for a chance to defeat Azathoth. Cirrus furiously responded, questioning if the system was truly dumb because in the current situation, the answer was definitely yes. The system explained that when Cirrus locked onto Azathoth as a target, it would trigger Azathoth's Spear of Oblivion. Afterward, Azathoth would be fully absorbed by Cirrus, and the poison could be completely detoxified. Cirrus's life countdown reduced to only 50 days. On the other hand, Azathoth was stunned to see that the system had actually refused to return to his body, which was unbelievable for him. Cirrus also realized that as long as he could see Azathoth within 10 meters, he could lock onto him. But before Cirrus could lock on, Azathoth used her power and red smoke enveloped the surroundings of Cirrus. Cirrus was stunned to see it and wondered if the red smoke was Azathoth's doing. The thickness of the smoke was so dense that Cirrus couldn't open his eyes. At that moment, Azathoth cut a slice in his hand, causing an automatic cut to appear on Sadiel's hand. Seeing this, she became tense and wondered what was happening. Within seconds, Azathoth teleported to her location. Upon reaching there, Azathoth was sweating and tense, realizing he had narrowly escaped and was now safe. He was furious that the system had rejected to return to him, feeling betrayed. Seeing Azathoth in this state, Sadiel was confused and wondered what had happened. Azathoth also realized that his location was likely locked by the system. On the other side, Cirrus was surprised to see that the system had locked Azathoth's location, but he was also stunned to see that Azathoth had managed to move so far in an instant. Sadiel asked Azathoth tensely if he was sweating because he had been injured. Azathoth responded that no one else in the city could harm him, and since she had drunk his blood, their bodies were resonating with each other. He explained that if he were to be injured, the harm would transfer to her first. Hearing this, Sadiel became tense. However, she first asked about Cirrus, inquiring if Azathoth had been able to take care of him. Azathoth responded with a no, indicating that now all his attacks would be useless against Cirrus. Sadiel reacted differently and asked Azathoth if what he was saying was true. Azathoth, in turn, asked her if she was happy that Cirrus was still alive. Sadiel responded with a no, expressing her dislike for Cirrus, and suggested that if Azathoth couldn't harm Cirrus, they should return to the dungeon. Azathoth responded with enthusiasm, saying no, as he had been with the system for thousands of years and knew it well. He acknowledged that his attacks were rendered useless against Cirrus, but he noted that pleasure didn't fall under the category of attacks. Therefore, he believed he could still bring Cirrus pleasure until it led to his demise. Azathoth explained that the system had difficulty selecting a host with a compatible symbiotic body, so once Cirrus died, the system would only be able to choose him. He added that once he turned back into a human, the system wouldn't be able to locate his location. Azathoth then ordered Sadiel to go and find Cirrus again during the nighttime. Azathoth asks Sadiel whether she has learned the transformation magic yet. Sadiel responds with a yes, so Azathoth asks her to try it on him. While Sadiel was performing her transformation magic on him, he shared that at night he would lose all his magic, so he had to rely on her to maintain his transformation. After the transformation, Azathoth turned into a girl character again. Azathoth was happy because it wasn't bad, and with the transformation, Cirrus wouldn't be able to recognize him. He also assured her that humans always like to do things like heroes saving beauties, so let Cirrus play the hero once. Then he could make a reasonable move and find an opportunity to push Cirrus over. Sadiel confusingly asks Azathoth if he could really wipe out Cirrus in a pleasurable way. Azathoth responds with a yes and asks her how she thinks he died. This implies that Azathoth also died due to a girl giving him pleasure. And whenever Azathoth remembered that he was abandoned by the system, he would become very furious, shouting and asking why the system rejected him. He couldn't understand what was so good about Ceres. On the other side, Ceres was wondering that he only had 50 days left to live. As long as he found Azathoth within that time period, he could cure himself and survive. Since time was of the essence, he needed to hurry. Suddenly, his heart started acting abnormally again, and Ceres realized that the poison in his body was acting up. This time, it affected his feet, as he felt a burning sensation in his little toe. He fell to the ground, howling in pain, and slowly fainted. Seeing this, Charlton ran towards Ceres, wondering what had happened. The scene then shifted to some time later when Ceres woke up and saw that he was in a hospital. Even the ward boy, seeing him awake, got happy and shouted to his underling to go and inform Mr. Charlton about this. Ceres asked the ward boy who had brought him to the hospital. The ward boy responded that it was Mr. Charlton, the vice president of the guild, who brought him there. Hearing this, Ceres was surprised. Just then, Charlton entered the room. Charlton then asked Ceres if he remembered saving his life, the fat guy who was surrounded by a big piercing spider. Ceres recalled the face and responded with a yes. Then Ceres asked how long he had been unconscious. Charlton responded that he had been unconscious for 13 hours. Hearing this, Ceres was shocked and asked if it was really that long, as it seemed his body had been drained from fighting for so long. Mr. Charlton apologized for his impatience and oversight, expressing hope that he hadn't disturbed Ceres further. Seeing Charlton's sincerity, Ceres asked if there was something the vice president needed from him. Charlton responded that he had witnessed Ceres' battle with the female spider monster and was impressed by his exceptional magic. Ceres then asked what the vice president wanted. Charlton shared that as men grow older, some abilities tend to decline and they lose interest in certain things. However, he saw Ceres' battle and found it very impressive and intriguing. He expressed that if he could learn Ceres' abilities, it would surely rejuvenate him and help him escape the suffering of the past 10 years. Ceres still didn't understand what the vice president actually wanted to say. Charlton pleaded with Ceres to teach him the magic and accept him as his disciple. Ceres was shocked to hear that the vice president of the Adventurers Guild wanted to be his disciple. Ceres thought that if he became Charlton's master, their relationship could leverage the Heroes Guild resources to locate Azathoth, which would certainly be helpful. However, he soon realized that it was a system ability, so he wondered how he could teach Charlton this skill. Ceres then asked Charlton if he could accept that his magic was very difficult. Charlton responded that no matter how hard it was, he had to try because, as the saying goes, the master teaches the way, but the effort is up to the individual. He promised to give his best to learn it, even if it cost him his life. Ceres told Charlton that the magic he witnessed needed to be practiced starting from the fingertips. Charlton suddenly bowed down in front of Ceres and earnestly asked him to accept him as his disciple. He also said to Ceres that this news must not be spread around. After all, he was still the vice president of the Adventurers Guild. Ceres responded that as his master, he understood. Suddenly at the door, Charlton's secretary Daisy came and said she had something to inform him. Charlton asked her to come in. She then showed him the warrant stating that Ceres had been convicted of desertion and sentenced to death. Ceres asked in confusion, "What? Why?" Daisy responded, "The document shows that Ceres disobeyed the captain's orders in the Cyrus squad, ran away without permission, which led to the mission's failure." Charlton turned to Ceres and said, "The matter is quite serious, but he will try to handle it as Ceres was his master." Ceres reassured Charlton that he didn't run away, as he had stayed to take care of the dungeon boss, Nay. Daisy responded that she had found information about the squad's retreat and mentioned that he, an F rank, Bella, a C rank, and Mark, a B rank, had all defeated an S rank monster. She found this achievement unbelievable for them. Ceres asked Daisy to send someone to confirm his statement. Daisy responded that the dungeon was currently empty as she had already sent someone. However, she added that during the investigation, he would need to be detained to prevent any potential escape issues. Charlton interrupted Daisy and told her there was no need for detention as he trusted Ceres' words. Daisy responded that it was against the rules. Charlton then said that if that was the case, he would take on the responsibility of supervising Ceres during the investigation process. Daisy informed Charlton that he needed to attend the guild's appreciation banquet that evening. Charlton asked her to let Ceres accompany him. Daisy once again urged Charlton to reconsider, emphasizing the banquet's high importance. Charlton thought for a moment and then told Ceres that it was decided he would not disturb him for the rest of the day and would come later at night to pick him up for the banquet. Ceres responded with an okay. When they both left, Ceres felt relieved, and then Ceres thought of checking Azathoth's location. Once he was ready, he planned to set out to find Azathoth. When Cirrus opened the system panel, he was surprised to see that Azathoth hadn't left the city. Upon closer inspection, he was stunned to realize that Azathoth was very close to him. When Cirrus thought about it seriously, he was shocked to realize that Azathoth was none other than at his home. He tensely ran back to his house, and upon entering, he found that there was no one in sight. As he went further inside, he discovered that Ghana was still there, but Yug was nowhere to be found in the house. So Cirrus interpreted that Yug had been captured by Azathoth. The scene shifted to Azathoth and Yug, where Yug was confused and tensely asked where she was. Azathoth smiled and responded that they were at the auction venue for monsters and humans. Cirrus was running towards the place where Azathoth's signal was showing, and he noticed that it had already been half an hour since he hadn't moved, indicating that he was very close to him. Suddenly, the marker showing Azathoth's location disappeared, and Cirrus realized that he would be unable to track Azathoth at night. As Cirrus moved further, he was attacked by someone, but he easily dodged the attack and wondered who was now targeting him. The person's name was Raka, and he explained that it was the territory of the Star Cavalry. He warned Cirrus that intruders, whether heroes or monsters, would be dealt with mercilessly. Upon hearing the term Star Cavalry, Cirrus wondered if they were the bandits known for thriving on kidnapping. They all prepared to fight Cirrus, with Raka mentioning that the female monsters and women in the prison were likely baits released to lure them out. He also warned that there might be other heroes lurking nearby. They decided to capture Cirrus and interrogate him. Cirrus wondered if the female monsters they mentioned were Yug. He thought it was the perfect opportunity to ask them if they had seen a perverted male monster in the area. Suddenly, his system showed a reminder that the weapon return mission would begin in 2 minutes. Cirrus felt tense because if he entered the weapon return mission, his stats would revert to their initial state of F rank. Therefore, he decided to finish off the situation quickly within the remaining 2 minutes. The scene shifted to Yug, who was trying to free herself from handcuffs, but couldn't due to a restraining magic on them. She also shared that without the nourishment of a male, her body became too weak. She wondered if she should return to where her master lived. Azathoth asked Yug if, being a monster, she didn't want to return to the dungeon. Yug responded that as a Ling-Lang lizard, she naturally relied on the essence of males. She chose a stronger guy and preferred human dens over monster caves, adding that the wine in the bottle was extremely delicious. Suddenly, to both Yug and Azathoth's surprise, there was a blast in the wall, and a boy was thrown into the room. Cirrus arrived there, relieved that everything had ended within the 2-minute time frame he had. Cirrus then said that if they had handed him the key sooner, they wouldn't have ended up getting a beating. Just then, his system showed him the weapon return mission, which required him to slap someone's buttocks 10 times until they made a sound. The countdown was set for 60 minutes. Hearing about the mission, Cirrus tensely approached the person he had beaten and asked if he could still scream. However, it was too late. The boy had already fainted. Cirrus realized that he shouldn't have hit so hard. Azathoth asked Cirrus to save them, but Cirrus hesitated, realizing they were in the outskirts where monsters could appear at any time. Without the power of the system, it was very dangerous. He decided to focus on completing the mission first. He unlocks Yug's handcuffs and slaps her on the buttocks, causing her to scream. Seductively, she asks what he is doing. Cirrus responds that to ensure their safe departure from the place, he needs to spank her butt, so please don't resist. Azathoth smiles and thinks to himself that Cirrus definitely wasn't a good guy. Dealing with this kind of person, all he needed to do was flirt with him a bit. Cirrus would fall for it. Azathoth couldn't believe Cirrus would come up with such an absurd excuse just to take advantage of her. Azathoth, now a girl in front of Cirrus, asks him to unlock her too. She assures him that as long as he saves her, she doesn't mind if he spanks her, and she is even willing to offer herself to him. So Cirrus agreed, but the moment he unlocked the handcuffs, Azathoth jumped towards him and hugged him, crying. She told him that she had been violently kidnapped and brought there. She was so scared because they had threatened to sell her to goblins. Azathoth also told Cirrus that now that he had rescued her, she would be all his. The moment she said that, Cirrus spanked Azathoth's buttocks, but she didn't scream. Seeing this, Cirrus tensely asked why she was not making a sound. Azathoth gets close to Cirrus and strangely asks him to do it again. Cirrus tensely considers denying her request, but before he can respond, his system shows that because Azathoth didn't make a sound, he had been frozen for 5 minutes. When Cirrus falls to the ground, frozen, Yug crawls towards him and holds his head, expressing that she feels very uncomfortable and urgently needs his body essence and blood. Otherwise, she might collapse and die. But Cirrus was fully frozen by then, and even his eyes were starting to close. Somehow, he managed to open his eyes and saw Yug kissing his neck. Seeing this, Azathoth got angry and shouted at Yug, calling her a shameless wizard for making a move while she wasn't looking. Azathoth moved to slap Yug, but before she could, Yug captured Azathoth in her tail. Yug responded that Cirrus was her master, not Azathoth, and besides, she was the one who arrived first. Azathoth became furious, but was unable to do anything, and wondered that if it were daytime, he could have easily removed Yug away. So Azathoth decided to forget about the situation, realizing that the priority was to reclaim the system rather than argue with Yug. Azathoth then suggested a three-way romance and got very close to Ceres. Seeing this, Ceres wondered whether Azathoth was truly being held against her will, questioning why she felt compelled to engage in such actions with him. Meanwhile, Sadil sat at the top of the room, observing everything and pondering whether Azathoth genuinely desired this interaction with Ceres, feeling the sensations in his body as though they were shared with her own. Azathoth shared that it had been a very long time since she had played like that. The more Azathoth continued, Sadil felt the same intense feelings and became increasingly seduced. Here, Azathoth asked Ceres to slowly bend his hand and apply a bit of pressure, which caused Sadil to experience even more intense sensations. She noticed her body starting to feel numb and getting goosebumps all over. Azathoth then reaches for Ceres' main part, causing Ceres to tense up and hope she wouldn't touch that area. Meanwhile, Sadil began to feel as though she was holding something in her hands. Suddenly feeling the grip, Ceres recognizes it as familiar, and upon closer inspection, realizes it's none other than Sadil. Seeing Ceres furious, Azathoth wonders why the look in Ceres' eyes had changed. Azathoth realizes that it's the technique he used inadvertently, which means he has been exposed. Tensely, Azathoth calls out to Sadil. Upon Sadil's arrival, Yug senses danger and transforms into her small form, running towards Ceres and asking for protection. Azathoth asks Sadil to quickly take him away since he has been exposed. Sadil agrees and prepares to act. Ceres was stunned to see that Azathoth had actually transformed into a girl to get close to him, and he realized he was lucky to have figured it out. However, since he couldn't use the system's abilities, there was no way for him to chase after Azathoth. By the time Ceres recovered from being frozen, Azathoth had already run away far ahead. Ceres decided to focus on completing his mission first, planning to pursue Azathoth once he regained access to the system. However, in the future, especially at nighttime, he resolved to be cautious of anyone of the opposite sex who approached him. The scene then shifted to a Z security gate where Daisy, Cyrus, and his teammates were waiting for Ceres. Upon seeing them, Ceres became confused as to why they were there. Cyrus came close to Cyrus and showed him the warrant, stating that he was being arrested for desertion and needed to come with them. To Cyrus's surprise, Daisy intervened and explained that she was Vice President Charlton's secretary. She informed them that they had investigated the new dungeon and found it empty, contradicting the accusation against Ceres. She also shared that the process of revocation had already begun, so they couldn't arrest Ceres now. She explained that Ceres was scheduled to attend the guild's appreciation banquet later. Meanwhile, Ceres was counting the number of members Cyrus had with him. But suddenly, Cyrus furiously slapped Daisy, shouting that she was clearly lying because only captains of A rank and above were allowed to attend the appreciation banquet. He accused her of falsely claiming to be the vice president's secretary. Cyrus also yelled that he was the president himself and ordered her to get lost. Cyrus then threatened Daisy, saying if she continued causing trouble, he would throw her into the interrogation room with Ceres. Ceres told Daisy to go and ask the vice president for authorization and to bring the revocation notice to rescue him, as he believed Charlton would surely help. Ceres also asked if she could do it in 20 minutes. Daisy responded that 10 minutes would be enough. Ceres praised her for that and said he would make them apologize by punishing them severely. The scene then shifted to the interrogation room, where everyone stood surrounding Ceres. Cyrus asked Ceres if he remembered how his right hand got injured. Ceres remained silent, not responding. Cyrus reiterated that he had bravely led his team into battle against the monster Nay. However, Ceres had attacked him from behind to escape, which gave Nye an opportunity to attack, resulting in the deaths of most of his team members. Cyrus explained that he sacrificed his right hand to save the lives of the remaining team members. Cyrus then furiously asks Ceres whether a coward like him deserves to live or die. Ceres responds that a coward who runs away when facing the enemy deserves to die like an animal. Hearing this, Cyrus becomes furious because he realizes Ceres is implying that he himself is a coward. Cyrus asks his teammate to bring the hammer to the table. At that moment, Ceres was wondering that 10 minutes had already passed, which meant the secretary should arrive soon. However, the problem was that he still didn't have access to the system, so he had to endure the situation for the time being. Suddenly, to his surprise, Yug calls to Ceres. Confused, Ceres asks what she means. Yug explains that Cyrus couldn't harm him because she had absorbed some of his blood essence, which had restored a bit of her magic power. This was more than enough to endure human torture. She also makes a deal that after they get back home, he would have to repay her twofold. Suddenly, Cyrus hits the hammer on the table near Ceres's hand, making Ceres tense. Cyrus asks Ceres to pick a finger they should start with, or if he prefers, Cyrus will choose one for him. Just as Cyrus is about to strike, one of his teammates interrupts, saying it's not a good time because the vice president's secretary has arrived with the revocation notice for Cyrus. Seeing the notice, everyone became tense and found it hard to believe that the girl was truly the secretary of the vice president. Even Cyrus was shocked and wondered how an F-rank hero could possibly have contact with someone at the vice president's level. So one of the boys asked if they should release Ceres, as using torture after receiving a revocation notice was illegal. Everyone prepared to release Ceres, but Cyrus told them to stop and asked them to bring the notice back to him after half an hour. As he hadn't received any revocation notice yet, Cyrus claimed he didn't know anything about it. Ceres became furious at Cyrus's actions, while Cyrus, with a determined expression, shouted that Ceres must pay the price. Outside of the interrogation room, Cyrus's teammates shared that their captain hadn't come out yet and they didn't have permission to go in. Daisy asked them to step aside as she would go in by herself and show the revocation notice. He responded to Daisy again, stating that it was the interrogation room and she didn't have the right to come and go as she pleased. Inside the room, Cyrus hit Cyrus's hands with the hammer, but to his surprise, Cyrus sustained no injuries from the blows. So Cyrus wondered what had happened, as there were no broken bones, no bloodshed, and not even a scratch on Cyrus's skin. Outside, Daisy was arguing with the guard. Suddenly, out of nowhere, Charlton arrived and asked the guard if he had the right to enter the room. Seeing this, the guard became tense and moved away from the door. Charlton kicked the door open, and upon entering, he saw Cyrus about to hit Cyrus with a hammer. Cyrus was stunned and tensely asked why the vice president was there. Charlton showed the notice and explained that it was the revocation notice for Cyrus's arrest warrant, instructing them to release Cyrus immediately. Cyrus tensely dropped the hammer and agreed to release Cyrus. Then they released Ceres, and Charlton explained that as a captain, Cyrus had abused his power by torturing a subordinate. Charlton warned that if the matter was investigated, Cyrus would likely be stripped of his captaincy at minimum. Cyrus, feeling scared, responded that he hadn't received the revocation notice, which was why he had taken action. Cyrus also mentioned that his teammates could testify for him, but surprisingly, none dared to do so because they didn't want to offend the vice president. Charlton furiously asked what Cyrus had to say now, leaving Cyrus speechless. Cyrus was also wondering what to do next, considering he could only go and ask his brother for help. Ceres stood up and said he could testify that Cyrus hadn't seen the revocation notice, and he wouldn't pursue the matter of Cyrus arresting him. Ceres then insisted that Cyrus and the others should bow and apologize to the secretary. Confused, the secretary wondered what Ceres was doing. The scene then shifted to a few minutes later, where everyone from the Crusade Squad was bowing down in front of Daisy. Ceres stood with a stick in his hand. Everyone apologized to Daisy, while Ceres furiously remarked that they dared to treat such a beautiful secretary rudely, and then started hitting everyone in their butt with sticks. When everyone was screaming in pain, Daisy, seeing it, was blushing and smiling, thinking about Ceres. They all shouted that they were wrong and wouldn't dare to do it again. With that, Ceres's mission was complete, so he informed Cyrus that the issue between Cyrus and Daisy was resolved. Hearing this, Cyrus tensely asked what Ceres meant. Ceres furiously grabbed Cyrus's hand and demanded that they settle their matter now. Cyrus tensely asked Ceres if he wasn't saying that he wouldn't pursue the matter of the arrest. Ceres angrily replied that it was about Cyrus hitting his hand with a hammer, and as he said this, he tightened his grip on Cyrus. Due to this, Cyrus starts howling in pain and was asking sorry from Ceres if he wouldn't do it again and forgive him. Ceres responds with an okay and breaks Cyrus's hand by hitting it on the knee. With that, Cyrus's left hand also got broken from the middle. His teammates started getting scared and tensely asked whether he was okay. Ceres also said that now he was forgiving Cyrus. Charlton informed Ceres that Daisy would take him to the banquet, as Charlton needed to meet with an envoy from the Holy See first. Ceres, confused, asks what the Holy See is. Charlton explains that they had established the church with a mission to eliminate all evil thoughts from the world. They possess unparalleled purification magic capable of eliminating any toxins from the body. The scene shifted to an appreciation banquet hall where the saintess named Mia of the Holy See was arriving at the party with Charlton. Upon seeing Mia, two boys started talking about her because her dress was so revealing. They wondered if it was a bit inappropriate for a saintess to dress like that. Suddenly, Mia stopped and stared at them. They were stunned, realizing that Mia had heard them. Mia then said that their doctrine was to eliminate all evil thoughts in the world. She explained that to eliminate evil thoughts, one must fully understand them, which is why people in their Holy See dress like that. She then asked the boys not to look at her with their filthy eyes. Hearing this, Charlton became furious and ordered the guard to slap them 10 times. Upon hearing this, they immediately started apologizing. Mia intervened and told Charlton that there was no need for that. She explained that if they punished those two guys, then everyone in the hall would need to be punished, except for the president. Charlton was stunned and asked how he was different from the others. Mia responded to Charlton, saying that while his mind was in turmoil, his body didn't react much, unlike the others who reacted strongly and had a surge of evil thoughts. Hearing this, Charlton got embarrassed and responded that he was a person of pure heart, so he had some self-control. Everyone started murmuring and discussing that they had heard the vice president was impotent. The scene shifted to outside of that hall, where Daisy and Cirrus arrived. Daisy shared that this was the venue they needed to come to, so they should go inside. While entering, Cirrus asked whether the purification magic of the Holy See was powerful. Daisy responded affirmatively, saying it was their unique magic. She explained that from lost limbs to illness to severe poisoning, they could heal everything. She also mentioned that being a hero was a high-risk profession, and every region's hero guild wanted to join them, but they had all been rejected. She shared that they didn't use their magic easily, even if someone needed help, all because of their evil thoughts. Ceres wondered if they might be able to cure his poison, so he decided he had to go and find them soon. Upon entering the hall, Ceres saw many people gathered in one place, so he asked Daisy about it. Daisy responded that she didn't know what was happening. Charlton then arrived and explained that the Saintess was testing their eligibility to collaborate with the Holy See. He also mentioned that if someone passed the test, collaboration would be possible, and their hero guild from Zone Z would gain significant strength. The scene then shifted to Mia, who pointed towards something and explained that it was the treasure of their Holy See, the Sacred Evil Heart. Once someone was inside, the gemstones would reveal the level of evil thoughts in that person's heart. The possibility of collaborating with their Holy See depended on the purity of someone's heart, and none from the Heroes Guild from other regions had made it through. So everyone started questioning what was inside and how they would measure it. Mia responded that if they wanted to find out, they should go inside and give it a try. Suddenly, a boy named Logan, the captain of Team 7, stepped forward and declared that he would give it a shot because he had a pure heart and had never done anything shameful. As he walked towards the test, Mia smiled. Upon entering inside, Logan was stunned to see a Catwoman, which was his weakness. He felt embarrassed seeing her magnificent attributes. Suddenly, out of nowhere, she came very close to him. He tensed up and wondered when she took the initiative to come so close to him. She just said meow, and he got seduced, saying that she was quite magnificent and he wanted to pet her. The Catwoman asked what he wanted to play. Logan responded that he wanted to play with her magnificent features. She asked him to stop, as it was disgusting, and threw Logan out of the tent. Upon getting out, he was howling in pain because he had hurt his chin. On the gemstone, it displayed 88% evilness. Mia was stunned to see this, realizing that Logan was definitely a person with many impure thoughts. Others also became tense upon seeing the high percentage of evil thoughts, indicating that there was something dangerous inside that tent. Another boy named Owen, the captain of Team 6, stepped forward and declared that he would go and check it out, confident that he could handle whatever was inside. However, he too was soon kicked out, and it was revealed on the gemstone that Owen had 92% evil thoughts. Similarly, many people came forward claiming they could handle it, but everyone's evil thought percentage was above 80%. Mia thought it was a waste of her time, because not a single person had a percentage below 80%. They were all morally compromised inside. She believed that no one would be able to pass the test. At that moment, Ceres stepped forward and announced that it was his turn now. Mia felt relieved, knowing he was the last person to take the test. As Ceres entered, he was confused to find a Catwoman inside. The Catwoman came close to Ceres and asked him what he wanted to do. To her surprise, Ceres put his hand on her face and pushed her back, stating that he didn't appreciate another woman approaching him proactively. Actually, deep down Ceres was thinking that he must be cautious, as there was a high chance it was Azathoth again. Even the Catwoman was stunned and remarked that he was the first man to reject her proactively. Outside the tent, Mia was stunned to see 0% on the gemstone, as it was the first time she had seen someone achieve such purity. The person seemed as calm as water. Inside, Ceres was cautious, still unsure of the identity. He asked the system to get started to confirm. Ceres' system asked him if he wanted to lock onto the enemy and use Azathoth's Spear of Oblivion. Ceres felt tense because he knew he only had one chance. If he messed up and faced Azathoth again, he would be doomed. On the other hand, the Catwoman was puzzled. It was the first time she had been rejected by a man, and he had even pushed her away. She also noticed that he was staring at her intently, yet there was no trace of evil thoughts, and he seemed somewhat hostile towards her. The Catwoman started biting her finger, frustrated that Ceres' rejection was more annoying than those who just covered her body, seeing it as a rejection of her charm. Determined, she decided to find a way to make Ceres' heart race. On the other hand, Ceres was thinking that he needed to find an opportunity to check if she had any malicious traits. Suddenly, she jumped towards Ceres, shaking her chest in an attempt to seduce him, and said not to look at her with such hostility, suggesting that a warm, soft hug could help them connect. But when she moved close to hug him, Cirrus dodged her and stepped away. Seeing this, the Catwoman became frustrated as she was rejected again. Undeterred, she ran towards him again to hug him, but this time he sidestepped her. As she jumped into the air, hoping Cirrus would feel her softness, he avoided her once more. Cirrus thought the angle would be appropriate to check if there was anything underneath her clothing. He moved in the opposite direction of the Catwoman to get a clearer view. As he approached, his eyes fell on her magnificent chest, causing him to blush involuntarily. However, he remained determined to check for any hidden traits first. The Catwoman also noticed that even as Cirrus dodged her, he continued to stare intently at her chest. After avoiding her, he stopped moving, and she also remained in place, pondering why Cirrus had no evil thoughts. Cirrus also felt tense because he couldn't seem to look away from the Catwoman's magnificent chest. She then asked why he was staring at her chest just like everyone else, and why his body reacted too, but there wasn't a trace of evil thoughts in his heart. She shouted again, demanding to know why he was so calm. Cirrus calmly responded that it was because he was an upright person. He didn't have any lewd thoughts about her body. He explained that breasts were natural in their world, providing milk and nutrients for growth and survival. Cirrus looked at her chest with a heart full of gratitude. Hearing his explanation, she became happy and blushed. She felt a strong, dazzling light emanating from Cirrus and believed that he was originally that kind of person. Finally, she imagined herself as small in front of him, realizing there was a significant gap between them. The Catwoman told Cirrus that he had passed the test and could leave now. Upon hearing this, Cirrus wondered if she was genuinely letting him go, and if she truly wasn't Azathoth. He happily bid her goodbye and left. As Cirrus left, the Catwoman wondered if her training was not sufficient, which was why she couldn't seduce him. Meanwhile, in the hall, everyone was discussing how Cirrus could achieve 0% evil thoughts, as they believed there was no way a man could lack interest in a Catwoman. Mia shared that it was her first time seeing someone with a completely pure heart. With hesitation, Cirrus asked if he had passed the test and if she could use purification magic on him to remove the poison. Mia responded affirmatively and asked everyone else to leave. The scene then shifted to some time later, where Mia and Cirrus were alone in the hall. Mia told him that she was going to detox him now and asked him to lie down. After lying down, Cirrus asked if he needed to do anything else. Mia replied, instructing him not to move. She then explained that their purification magic was bestowed upon them by the Holy See, and each person had a specific part of their body for performing magic. Mia took out her right foot and revealed that her purification magic was in her feet, using stepping motions to perform the magic. Mia then shared that while she was using the purification magic, Cirrus must not harbor any evil thoughts, as it would gradually diminish the effectiveness of the magic. Tensely, Cirrus asked if those evil thoughts referred only to him. Mia responded affirmatively, explaining that since she became a saintess of the Holy See, her desires were taken away. She asked Cirrus to relax completely, assuring him that she would proceed from top to bottom to assess his physical condition, as it was a necessary part of the process, so Mia could treat his body more accurately. Cirrus agreed. Mia began moving her feet around his hand, adjusting and performing her purification magic. Seeing this, Cirrus thought she might be trying to use her foot to reposition his hand, so he tried to help by moving it himself. In response, Mia shouted at him to not move and assured him she would handle it herself. Mia emphasized that any movement from Cirrus could affect her ability to cast the magic effectively. She then mentioned feeling cramped in the chair and requested to use his face for support. Placing her feet on his face, she carefully moved her left foot towards his hand. Mia then announced that she was beginning the magic, and the moment she lifted her foot, Cirrus felt pressure on his face. Suddenly, to his surprise, he found himself floating on water and wondered where he was. Out of nowhere, a foot descended from above and pressed against him. Cirrus tensed up as the weight was substantial, so he pushed the foot back with his strength. In reality, Mia's foot was pushed away in the air. She asked Cirrus to relax and not resist her foot, explaining that it was part of the healing process. Mia also explained that she was using her purification magic to project his consciousness into a specific part of his body. She assured him that she would bring him out of the water and his fingers would be healed. Cirrus responded that he understood and was ready. When she placed her foot again, Cirrus was prepared. As the foot approached him, he jumped and grabbed onto the toes, hanging in the air. Mia explained that she would pull him out in one go, but Cirrus was caught by something under the water. He informed Mia that something below was entangling him. Mia responded that those were the poisons in his body. She then pulled him and asked him to grab onto her foot. He tried, but couldn't get a good grip, so he considered tearing her dress to get a better hold. Mia noticed and remarked that Cirrus's action was very rude. Despite this, Cirrus held onto her foot tightly as she pulled him away from the roots of poison. He realized that despite her firm grip, he felt no pain. Instead, he felt surprisingly comfortable. Suddenly, Cirrus felt his little finger getting very warm. As soon as he was pulled from the water, he saw in real life that his little finger had returned. Opening his eyes, he witnessed his finger regenerating, confirming that it was indeed working. Then Mia mentioned that she could sense another remnant and asked Sirius to take off his shoes. Just like before, his foot's limb was also restored. Sirius was amazed by the power of purification magic. Mia then explained that she needed to change direction now that she had located the poison in his body. She placed a chair between his legs and asked him to lie down without moving, emphasizing they needed to work together to detoxify it. She then puts her foot on his private part because it's the source of the poison. The moment she puts her foot, Sirius is stunned due to pain and wonders whether it is really there. In the imaginary life, she was pushing Sirius inside the water, saying that she would send him down and he needed to pull the poison to the surface, and it would disappear, and his body would be detoxified. Sirius responded furiously that he couldn't breathe underwater. Mia reassured him not to panic, and then wrapped both legs around him, explaining that this would help him expel all the poison by continuously strengthening his power. Suddenly, Sirius noticed that he was growing larger. As he reached the depths of the sea, he saw red roots emerging from the bottom. He asked if these were the poison in his body. With determination, Sirius moved towards the roots of poison to pull them out. Whereas here in real life, Mia's body starts feeling very strange. On the other hand, the series system shows that there was 1% of locked favorability, which means somehow Sirius locked Mia as her target, and now Mia was going to be seduced like others. So what do you guys think, whether she would be able to detoxify him, or her evil thoughts and desires would arise somehow? And lastly, Sirius had to fight with Azathoth without his will to cure his body's poison. We pick up the story right when the poison detoxification process is underway, and suddenly the system locks Mia as the target, making her body feel pretty nutty. Right on cue, the poison surrounding our boy began to dissipate after Mia successfully activated the shield. She advises him that since the shield is up, he should swim down and try to break down the poison in his body. Sirius starts diving deeper into this spiritual world, heading toward the core of the poison. The tentacles are getting demolished as soon as they touch the shield, so he's making good progress. He should reach the poison's source soon. However, despite swimming for what feels like a long time, Sirius realizes he hasn't gotten any closer. Even though he's covered a significant distance, the source still seems far away. That's when Mia explains that you can't use real-world distance to judge how far you are in body consciousness. So, even if the source looks close, it's actually not. Meanwhile, Mia continues to rub her feet anxiously to keep the shield up, but she's worried she might exhaust herself at this rate. Not only that, she's feeling a strange sense of joy spreading from her feet. Well, we can understand why she's feeling this way, because the system has been locked, and the favorability has just increased to 21%. However, it looks like things are starting to go wrong. The shield has begun to crack, and water from outside the shield starts leaking into the bubble. Our boy starts shouting for the Saintess, who reveals that her purification magic is weakening, and she has no idea why. The favorability rises to 47%, and she discloses that evil thoughts, which we can also call lewd thoughts, are beginning to emerge. She quickly advises him to stop thinking about clapping her cheeks, because his private part is getting hard, and the purification magic will eventually fail. Seems like things has already gone out of hand, and our boy is once again totally tangled up in the web of the poison, and he can barely breathe. Mia tries even harder to repair the shield to keep up her purification magic, but her flushed face and the favorability rising to 69% make it clear she's not going to make it. As you can imagine, Sirius begins to drown, and just before he can suffocate, he wakes up back in reality. As he lies on the ground, the Saintess appears to be smiling oddly. The favorability has risen to 87%, and it's clear she's had an interesting time rubbing his rod with her feet, and she seems eager to continue rubbing it to keep up the shield. Just as she is thinking about all the naughty stuff, the favorability also rises to 91%, and our boy quickly snaps her out of her inappropriate behavior by calling her out. The Saintess is startled to see that Sirius has already returned to reality, which means her treatment has failed. She's completely confused about what's happening and can feel her heart racing as if it's going to burst. She's starting to experience some unsettling thoughts and physical sensations, feeling wet and out of sorts. She's convinced that these evil thoughts are what caused the purification magic to fail, and she is feeling deeply ashamed for it. She resolves to keep this incident to herself, worried that it could tarnish the dignity of the Holy See. The Saintess then drops the bombshell that the treatment is finished, leaving our boy to ask her if she can't remove the poison from his body after all. She shakes her head, explaining that there is no poison the Holy See can't cure, but his condition will require long-term treatment. She tells him that once she finds a way to reach the source of the poison, she'll let him know. In the meantime, she can still heal the limbs of his body. She adds that he's welcome to visit the Holy See anytime to find her, and finally introduces herself as Lilia. With that, she begins to walk away. Sirius is left thinking that Azathoth might be the only solution for his poison after all. Meanwhile, Lilia hides behind a pillar outside, and her hormones appear to be going absolutely wild. She's barely able to hold herself back, as her body is practically begging her to make some babies. In the following scene, we see Cyrus is getting tossed and kicked around by his brother like yesterday's trash. The brother is absolutely fuming that his scrawny little brother couldn't even handle a single task. But the poor guy quickly explains that this time the president was involved. The brother tells him to shut up, saying he's not in the mood to hear any more lame excuses, and throws an envelope down on Cyrus. The confused man asks what it is, and the senior brother reveals that it's a map to the A-rank dungeon, known as Shia. Cyrus responds that the boss of Shia is an S-rank monster, and he's not even A-rank himself, so how is he supposed to fight that? It's almost like volunteering to die. That's when the senior reveals that the Shia dungeon has already been nearly conquered by heroes from K. The returning heroes reported that the boss, Shia, has been severely damaged, and even F-rank heroes could now defeat it. However, the senior explains that he intercepted this news and blocked it from spreading, so the monster is essentially a sitting duck. Now's his chance to capitalize on the situation and secure the captain's position. Hearing this, Cyrus's eyes light up with happiness. He reassures his brother that he'll definitely take care of it. However, it seems like he's celebrating his victory a bit too soon. Because as we see, Shia, the monster, is getting patched up once again by Azathoth, and Azathoth is feeding some of his own blood into the monster's mouth, causing Shia to heal completely and rise from the rubble like a raging bull. The monster takes a deep sigh of relief after narrowly escaping death. He quickly reminds Azathoth that he's been saved once again and feels deeply indebted, vowing to do whatever it takes to repay the favor. As expected, Azathoth tells him to simply kill a human for him and nothing else. Naturally, that person is our boy, who is currently searching for this gender-bender figure as well. We then see the eager vice president, who gives props to our boy for his significant contribution in the guild. He explains that their Z area will be cooperating with the Holy See, and their combined strengths have increased considerably. He tells our boy that if he has any requests, he should let them know. Our boy doesn't hesitate and demands the captain's position. This way, he'll have the authority to choose which dungeon he wants to tackle. The vice president quickly agrees to grant his wish. Cyrus then states that he'll head home to prepare and plans to leave the city by noon. After all, with only 49 days left to live, he can't afford to waste any more time. The vice president asks why there's such urgency, pointing out that they're already short-staffed in the guild, and the process for promoting a new captain might not be completed by noon. That's when the secretary jumps in, offering to help. She's familiar with the procedure and should be able to complete it before noon. She says it's a thank you gift for our boy for giving a well-deserved smackdown to Cyrus. Later, our boy arrives back home. As soon as he opens the door, Yug greets him upon his arrival and tells him she's cleaned everything and even finished all the food. She starts rubbing against him, boasting that now that the home is spotless, she's the epitome of every human's dream maid and expects to be praised by her master. Reluctantly, the boy acknowledges that she's awesome, mainly because he doesn't want to suffocate against her massive chest. She then asks if she can stay here forever, since she's really useful. The boy asks the maid if she doesn't want to go back to her own home. The girl pretends not to understand what a home is and declares that for a monster, there's only a lair, not a home. She continues to squeeze his face, and eventually, our boy tells her she can stay, but warns her that she must not let anyone find out she's a monster, given they live in a city full of ordinary humans. Otherwise, they'll both be in trouble. The maid lights up with joy and reassures him that she's great at hiding. Just then, the favorability level hits 100%, and the system announces that getting close to her has doubled the increase in values. She then reminds our boy that since her work is done, it's time for him to perform his role as well. Ceres remains confused and asks what she's talking about. She then reminds him that in the dungeon, she took a bunch of hammer blows for him, which used a lot of her magic. Now she's expecting him to repay her with double what she lost. Looks like our boy is cool with that since getting laid with her will also double her strength, which will be super handy for the upcoming journey. Well, sounds like a win-win situation. The next scene shows the secretary driving her car, looking forward to arriving at Cyrus's place to deliver him the promotion notice. Meanwhile, the man in question is getting his clothes torn off by his muscular maid. As she rubs her hands against his naked body, she comments on how fantastic his physique is. She starts getting closer and closer, and as soon as she opens her mouth, she begins squeezing his meat, leaving him groaning in pain, or maybe in pleasure. The system window goes crazy with notifications, announcing all the sweet stat boosts he's getting. Meanwhile, the maid is feeling totally pumped up with all the power surging inside her. She doesn't let up and keeps squeezing him, and just as he lets out a huge groan of pain, she quickly softens her grip and apologizes for getting too excited. Suddenly, the front doorbell rings, and our boy can tell that the visitor must be the secretary, here to deliver his promotion notice. He quickly tells the maid to hide for a bit. Once she's out of sight, he opens the door and finds the secretary standing there. He tells her he was just in the shower, so not to mind his shirtless look. As expected, the secretary announces that he's been promoted to captain and hands over the ID card and promotion notice. He gratefully takes the documents, and the secretary also offers him some fruit she brought. Once again, he thanks her for the kind gesture, especially since he's run out of food, and we all know the reason why he is running low in food. Yug listens in closely, while the secretary blushes and tells our boy he can call on her for help anytime. It's pretty clear that Yug isn't happy seeing her master getting all chummy with the secretary, so she pops out of hiding right then and there. The secretary's jaw drops when she sees a tall woman with a pair of assets that could give the entire adult industry a run for its money. My guy gets stunned to see her, and wonders why Yug came out of her hiding spot. To his surprise, she's taken on a human form and immediately starts hugging him again, introducing herself as his passionate sister. As Yug gets all lovey-dovey, kissing him everywhere, the secretary gets jealous. She snatches the fruits she brought, says an annoyed goodbye, and leaves in a huff. Yug keeps up her passionate rambling, which only annoys the secretary more. In frustration, she throws all the fruit into the dustbin. Later on, our guy suits up in his armor, and as he stands at the door, he tells Yug he has an important task for her. She has to transform into a human, buy some food, and make sure not to get caught. With that, he's off, determined to find Azathoth no matter what. As he opens the door to leave, he spots something on the floor. It turns out to be the fruit with a note that says, "Sorry for getting mad earlier." It's pretty clear that it's from the secretary. We then catch up with Cyrus and his goons, who are all fired up about hitting the jackpot after defeating the boss monster. Cyrus in particular is feeling pretty smug. With the map his brother gave him, this whole journey seems like a walk in the park. His lackeys point out that around 10 teams of A-rank heroes came to Area K and all failed to conquer it. But they weakened the boss Shia quite a lot, which gives them an easy victory. Cyrus then gets all cocky and makes it clear that according to the guild rules, the team that defeats the boss first gets all the resources. So, it's not his fault if those previous heroes left the dungeon boss alive. Just then, a giant monster drops down. And guess what? It's our boy, who just took down the A-rank monster rock giant and got the map of the area. Looks like all that squeezing and getting a bit pervy with Yug paid off after all. He then checks his system and notices that Azathoth has already made it deep into the dungeon, reaching the boss's room. Meanwhile, Cyrus and his party are scared by the sudden rustling voices. He quickly grabs his sword and instructs his team to get ready for any threat. To their shock, our boy emerges from hiding. Cyrus literally has no clue what this guy is doing here, and suspects he might be trying to snatch their victory. So, he directly asks our boy what the hell he is doing here. Ceres simply replies that he's here to slay some monsters, just like everyone else. Cyrus asks about the team he came with, but our boy says he's doing this solo and proceeds to walk away, clearly focused on his own mission. Cyrus begins to tremble at the thought of Ceres taking on an A-rank dungeon all by himself. The realization that Ceres might already know that boss Shia is weakened only adds to his anxiety. He quickly hypes up his party and tells them to move faster and follow him. He's determined not to let our boy find the weakened Shia first and steal the credit. Meanwhile, Ceres opens his map via the system, which promptly announces that the map has been activated. A new notification pops up about this sword, known as Bunker Spectre, indicating that pulling out this sword will cause the paths ahead to swap left and right, and it can also disable or enable traps. Meanwhile, Cyrus is feeling confident with the secret info from his brother's map, thinking he's got the upper hand. According to the map, there's a fork ahead. The right path is a dead end, and the left path is the correct one. Cyrus believes he's ahead of our boy, but he doesn't realize that Ceres's system has already clued him in on everything he needs to know. Cyrus dashes toward the right path, feeling smug about his strategy. He believes that once he takes the left path, he'll seal off our boy behind him. It quickly becomes clear that Cyrus's information was off. As he charges down the right path, he's met with a massive dragon, and there also appears to be someone else who is giving a thorough beating to this monster. This cocky guy has no clue what is happening, because his brother's map and intel didn't mention anything about this monstrous foe. The dragon roars and thrashes, its tail smashing through the surroundings. It's a chaotic scene, with debris flying everywhere and the adventurers barely managing to avoid being squished. We then see that person from before fighting the monster. She balls up his fist and lands a devastating blow that sends the massive beast crashing down. The dragon finally crumples to the ground, lifeless, right before Cyrus's feet. He just stares in shock, totally lost on how this woman managed to take down a giant creature with her bare hands. After the monster's down, she zooms over to Cyrus and his team. Seems like she's an S-rank adventurer named Daphne from Area K. As she lands, she asks which area they're from. Cyrus looks pretty nervous in his presence and admits they're from Area Z. When Daphne asks if they're here to conquer Shia's dungeon too, the anxious guy says yes. Daphne then points out that Area K didn't ask for help from Area Z, so she's wondering if he's trying to compete with her. She makes it clear that fighting her wouldn't end well. Cyrus tries to stay chill, suggesting they could work together and that it'd be an honor to team up with her. But Daphne makes it clear she's not into teamwork because only the weak rely on others, and she's definitely not weak. Then she suddenly gets a transmission in her ear, asking if there are any heroes around because dragons have shown up and they need some backup. She quickly squats down, and before launching herself into the air, she tells these shitheads to go back home. She saw them freaking out after seeing the monster, and she definitely doesn't want weaklings like them hanging around. With that, she takes off with such force that the ground shatters beneath her. She soars into the sky, her peachy butt leaving an impression as she flies away. Meanwhile, our guy is still stunned that she can fly. On the other hand, stupid Cyrus is still fixated on taking down that boss monster before she returns, even though she clearly warned him to stay away. Even Ceres can't help but notice how incredibly thick-headed Cyrus is. Cyrus quickly activates the mechanism and drops the giant stone gates, feeling confident that he's sealed off the place. Now he thinks no one will bother them, and they'll finally get the credit for killing that monster. Meanwhile, outside, our guy grabs that sword, and his magic power starts depleting rapidly. With a strong push, he finally pulls the sword out of its place, leaving him with just 3530 mana. The whole area starts to quake, leaving Cyrus and his lackeys bewildered. On the other hand, our guy, now holding this sword known as the Bunker Scepter, takes the right path. Cyrus is feeling pretty confident and figures they'll reach their destination in a few minutes since all the monsters in the area have been cleared. But everyone's jaws drop when they see B-rank furious monsters known as Obsidian Claws. It's clear these monsters are not to be messed with. They growl and quickly charge at Cyrus and his party. We're back inside Boss Shia's room, where we find Azathoth and his lackey once again. Azathoth looks pretty bored and exhausted, especially because he had to feed a lot of his blood to Shia, so he tells his pet not to let him down. The monster responds that he can feel the power surging through him from all that blood, and he's confident he'll put a serious smackdown on our guy when he shows up. The purple head then asks Azathoth if Shia can really kill our boy, who can actually boost his strength during battles. Azathoth reassures her that this time is different, because all the monsters in this dungeon are male, so there's no female touch to help our boy this time. Suddenly, a pack of wolves appears, and our guy is itching to test out the sharpness of his new sword, which he pulled out after draining a lot of energy. The system announces that using the sword to slash at certain points can trigger hidden traps. Our guy spots all the trigger points in the dungeon and notices the first one right in front of him, which will unleash a storm of arrows. Without wasting any time, he thrusts his sword into the trigger, and a barrage of arrows starts raining down, taking out all the wild beasts like they're nothing more than cucumbers in a ninja fruit game. There's still one monster left alive, but Cyrus stays calm and composed. He takes his stance and swings his sword with such force that it slashes through the beast. Just as he finishes, another monster jumps at him. He tightens his grip on the sword and brings it crashing down right onto the monster's head. Meanwhile, Cyrus's party is getting absolutely demolished by these same wolves. He realizes that these wolves are definitely stronger than B rank, and their only option is to run with their tails between their legs. But when they reach the entrance they came through, Cyrus sees that he's already sealed it behind him. This means they're royally screwed with no place to escape. The wolves are closing in fast, and it's only a matter of time before these idiots get chomped down. Cyrus quickly tells his lackeys to hold off the wolves while he checks the map to find a way to open the door. The poor guys scream for their captain to do something before they end up as a tasty dinner for these beasts. But their captain feels utterly hopeless. He has no clue what to do other than cry his eyes out because the map only shows mechanisms for sealing the gate, and there's no mechanism to open it. Meanwhile, our guy is surrounded by these same monsters. As the beasts charge at him, he simply leaps from his initial spot and lands on the other side. That's when he spots another trigger over his left shoulder. Just as the monsters rush toward him, he smashes that trigger, and a slab of stone begins to descend from above, crushing the poor wolves like tomatoes under a fast car. On the other hand, the gate for Cyrus opens up and they begin to make their escape. However, the monsters are still hot on their heels, and one of the monsters even grabs this cocky guy by the leg, leaving him pretty much screwed. But just then, our guy quickly pulls his sword back from the trigger point. The stone slab that smashed the monsters begins to rise again, and at the same time, the path that had opened for Cyrus closes once more. The descending slab crushes the monster that was biting Cyrus's leg, freeing him from its sharp fangs. Once our guy finishes off the remaining monsters, he realizes this sword isn't bad at all. As he moves forward, the system guides him to turn right, and he continues on, leaving a trail of dead monsters behind. Meanwhile, Cyrus, despite everything and barely escaping with his life, still refuses to give up. He's more worried that Ceres might reach Shia first. If that happens, Cyrus knows he's in big trouble. His brother even provided him with the map, and if he returns without having killed the monster, his brother will definitely make him regret it. He then notices that all the monsters are dead here, and the road structure matches the map perfectly. It's clear that he's on the right path currently, and he's fuming at the thought that his brother gave him a backward-drawn map that nearly got him killed. Well, it seems like ever since our boy pulled that sword, the paths have shifted, so it's not exactly the map's fault, I guess. After walking a bit further, he encounters another split in the path. They're unsure which way to go, and the map indicates they should head right. This time, Cyrus decides to play it smart and takes the left path, but it's pretty obvious he's making yet another mistake because the map was actually correct and he's about to get screwed again. Meanwhile, after taking a lot of lefts and rights, the system announces that he's finally arrived at the boss room. There, before him, is the notorious monster, Shia, who's quite surprised to see our guy wielding the Bunker Scepter sword, which only means he's got some moves after all. Ceres, however, couldn't care less about this monster's yammering. He takes his stance, focused solely on getting through this final room because Azathoth must be around here somewhere. That's when Shia speaks up, saying he's going to take our boy's head to his goddess. As soon as our guy hears the word goddess, he perks up and asks the beast if he thinks Azathoth is a female. The monster then goes on about how goddess Azathoth has a chest like you wouldn't believe, skin so flawless it's unreal, and a scent that just screams femininity. Our boy spots another trigger nearby and slashes his sword at it. A huge axe pops out of the ground and heads straight for the monster. But Shia remains cool as a cucumber, and with a flick of his hand, he shatters the giant sword into smithereens. Ceres is completely boggled out of mind to see this behemoth didn't even need to use his own weapon to take down that axe. Shia lets out a massive growl after destroying the axe and then leaps at Ceres with full power. He is clearly furious at our boy and demands to know how he dares to disrespect the goddess by calling her a man. Ceres' sword shatters into two pieces with just one swing from this mighty beast, which is a dead giveaway that this monster should not be taken lightly. But our boy doesn't even flinch, and makes it clear that it's finally his turn to strike back. He pulls out his swift body slash technique and moves so fast that he vanishes from his spot, reappearing behind the behemoth to deliver a sneaky blow from behind. But guess what? This monster isn't a slouch either. He's so quick that, in the blink of an eye, he twirls around with some godly speed and blocks the surprise attack like it's no big deal. Actually, the monster did not turn around, but a clone of him just popped up right in front of our guy, who blocked the sneaky attack with that giant blade of his. The clone then doesn't waste any time and chucks that massive sword at him with so much force that the ground beneath Ceres' feet starts to crack. The monster cockily brags that goddess Azathoth has cranked up his power so much that taking out our boy is going to be as easy as squashing a bug. Well, it's true that our boy is struggling under the crushing weight of that blade. Just as he's locked in a deadlock with the monster, the other clone decides to take a swing at him. Before that sword can slice him in two, he quickly pushes off the ground and breaks free from the deadlock, but the blade still clips his foot, sending him crashing into the wall behind him with such force that it shatters on impact. The two monsters just laugh like they've landed a funniest mom joke ever. On the other hand, our boy is still alive thankfully, but he's seriously doubting if he can handle this monster, especially with that annoying clone hanging around. Meanwhile, Cyrus and his party are getting absolutely wrecked by this giant stone knight. Just as whiny Cyrus is about to get crushed under the monster's massive leg, something whams the giant rock right on the head, shattering it into smithereens like it's nothing. And guess what? It's the same peachy-ass lady from before. The woman asks this whiny guy if he's the one who was calling for help. Cyrus still does not have a clue what is going on and remains silent. But then the lady asks him for one last time if he's the one who was calling for help. The poor terrified Cryas quickly says he was indeed calling for help because he was just about to die. Hearing this, Daphne doesn't hesitate and lands a solid kick right on his face. Honestly, even if you were the one getting kicked by someone like her, I'd say it's a kick worth taking. Anyway, that kick sends the bastard flying like a rag doll, and the woman starts berating everyone, calling them a bunch of useless trash from Area Z. She claims they all think they're brave heroes, but they're just shaking with fear in front of these monsters, which is ridiculously pathetic. As she continues her rant, it looks like Cyrus is finally down for the count. The lady orders his lackeys to take their trash leader and get the hell out of there. They quickly start dragging their captain away and leave the place. Suddenly, she notices something on the other side. She squats down and, before leaping again, recalls that according to the intel, room 3055 should be at the southernmost point at 37. To get there faster, she jumps up and starts busting through 10-foot thick walls like they're nothing more than paper sheets. Meanwhile, Our guy looks utterly exhausted, like he's on the brink of collapse. As exhausted as he might be, he has no choice but to fight these monsters, and nothing seems to be working against them, and he is getting tossed around like a rag doll, and it's like he's barely making a dent. Ceres needs a power boost, but the only way to get one is if there are females around. Luckily, he might not need to worry about that anymore because Daphne has crashed right into the middle of the fight. Once she sees our boy standing behind, she gets pretty curious about what someone from the Z area is doing here. Daphne tells him to just get out of there since he's clearly no match for the boss. But our guy doesn't back down. He insists that this boss is tougher than he expected and asks her to help him out. Well, the woman just gets absolutely annoyed to hear this, because she's an arrogant type who doesn't like teaming up with weaklings, and it's clear she's not thrilled about being asked for help. But Ceres just utters those magical words, "Lock the target." Meanwhile, Daphne is still being her cocky self and trying to boss him around. But those words start messing with her mind. Even though she wants to tear him apart, she finds herself inching closer to him. Eventually, they end up in an intense lip lock, giving Ceres a much-needed power boost and raising the favorability level to 77%. As soon as Daphne realizes what she's done, she pulls back her lips in shock, completely baffled by her own actions. She starts berating him again, accusing him of stealing her first kiss and telling him she's not forgiving him for it. Meanwhile, the monster, annoyed at being ignored, swings its sword at Ceres. But with his newfound power, Ceres dodges the attacks like he's playing tag with a bunch of kids. He then leaps into the air and swings his sword at the monster, slicing it across the throat. The monster can clearly tell that Ceres has become stronger. Daphne, still trying to process what just happened and why she kissed him, is also feeling a bit conflicted. Despite her shock, she enjoyed the kiss, and the warm, soft feeling lingers on her lips, bumping the favorability bar up to 85%. Suddenly, the monster tries to swing its sword at Daphne. Ceres quickly warns her to stop spacing out, and before the monster's swing can land, he pushes her out of the way. The swing shatters the wall above them, and Daphne's armor also takes the brunt of that swing. Her big hooters quickly begin to pop out of her broken armor, which leaves her totally embarrassed. Ceres reminds her that she almost got slashed, so she better stop slacking off. The monster, on the other hand, tries to strike again, but Ceres blocks the attack with his broken sword. As Ceres keeps helping her out, the favorability level rises to 88%. Daphne's armor has been torn apart, leaving her slim body and thick thighs totally exposed. She experiences a jolt of electricity through her body, making her feel paralyzed. Just as the favorability further increases to 92%, our boy's power continues to rise, and even the monster can't ignore his increasing strength. Meanwhile, Daphne's body starts reacting intensely. She can feel a tingling sensation spreading through her lower body, making her legs lose strength. She's feeling something she's never experienced before, and if it continues, she fears her whole body might go limp. The favorability level hits a whopping 97%, which is further making Daphne to fight off her overwhelming urges. She does not want to be a burden, and can't let Ceres help her any more than he already has, because her pride won't allow it. Ceres is pushed back once again and asks her for help, admitting that he can't win this fight alone. Daphne, however, remains stubbornly arrogant. She insists that teaming up is against her principles and that she's always defeated monsters on her own. But at the end, she does suggest a compromise. Since there are two monsters, they can each handle one separately. This way, she can stick to her no cooperation rule while still fighting alongside Ceres. With this newfound understanding, Ceres stands beside her and, in a weird display of sincerity, pulls her close. He reassures her that with her by his side, he is sure that he can win against anyone. Daphne's breathing is heavy, and the tingling sensation from before is back. Her favorability level has shot up to 99%, and she's fighting hard to stay focused. She's got this strong urge to work with Ceres, which she's not used to feeling. Meanwhile, we catch Azathoth in a miserable state, puking his guts out and complaining about how his heartless body is running out of steam. His lackey freaks out to see him in such a condition, and asks if Shia hasn't dealt with the human yet. Back with Daphne, she's having a hard time wrapping her head around why she's so eager to team up with Ceres. She used to be all about doing things solo, but now she feels this powerful pull to join forces with him, and maybe even embrace him. Meanwhile, we see Azathoth handing Sadiel a red pill, and he explains to her that he doesn't have much time left to wait for Shia to take out Ceres. The pill is infused with his blood spirit, and he tells her to give it to Shia so he can consume it. This way, Azathoth plans to take on Shia's physical body and abilities. He further states that by using Shia's physical duplication ability, he can deceive the system's mark, but Shia's body will only be able to handle his power for a few seconds. During that brief window, he plans to forcibly reclaim his heart, even if it means taking a huge risk. Sadiel eyes the pill with a hint of sadness. wondering if Cirrus will die here. Azathoth gets clearly infuriated to hear this, and demands to know why she's so concerned about that human. Sadiel quickly reassures him that she feels nothing but disgust for humans. Literally no concern, just revulsion. We're back with Cirrus, who's still battling the maniac of a monster. His sword is falling apart, and he's even got a few ribs cracked. Just when things seem dire, Daphne swoops in at the last moment to save him from the monster's attack. She quickly deflects the monster's sword with her hand, but Cirrus, while grateful, can't help but notice the softness of her assets pressing against him. Before he can fully appreciate the moment, the monster flings them away, and Cirrus ends up getting pinned under the weight of Daphne's considerable assets, which might just be enough to shake up the entire dairy industry, if you ask me. Daphne begins to feel a rush of sensations once more. She moans and groans as her earlier feelings return. As her intensity builds, Cirrus's defenses start to rise as well, giving him a boost just when he needs it most. Meanwhile, the monster's gearing up to unleash his biggest attack yet, aiming to crush both of them in one go. Back with our guy, he's got a nosebleed after being overwhelmed by her softness. She's worried she might have caused it with her weight, so she quickly steps back and apologizes. The monster's ready to fire off his massive energy ball, and he quickly throws it right at the duo. The ball incinerates everything in its path, obliterating the walls and leaving a huge gaping hole. The two clone monsters are grinning like Cheshire cats, and they are quite sure that they've blasted our heroes to bits. But it turns out they underestimated the power of Absolute Booba. She appears to have blocked the gigantic energy ball single-handedly, though her armor shatters and falls off after absorbing the impact. She turns to him, asking if he's okay. He replies that he's fine, though a few ribs are broken. She reminds him that he's no match for Shia at all and warns him that if he keeps fighting, he's definitely going to die. She then stands confidently and makes it clear that this battle is hers alone and she's ready to drive the monster away right now. But despite her determination, she can't shake her desire to touch him. She's overcome with an intense urge to grab him and pull him close, wanting to feel that sense of dominance. She then tells him that her blue armor has already worn out from the last attack, which leaves her body exposed entirely, and she definitely does not want this monster to look at her big boobs. She admits that she can't cover her body while fighting, so she shyly invites him to hold her milky breasts for her. Even though she's saying this out loud, she's battling with her inner feelings, trying to keep her desire from taking over. She reminds herself that she's a top-notch hero, trained to the highest level, but all her training seems to be slipping away as she struggles to control her own urges. Meanwhile, our guy is doing his best to stay on his feet despite his injuries. That's when Daphne realizes why she's feeling so intensely about him. She convinces herself that what she's feeling isn't desire, but a duty to protect the weak, since she's seeing an injured man. It's a nice way to rationalize things, but deep down, we all know that she's just fooling herself. Eventually, she extends her hands towards him, ready to pull him in closer because it's her responsibility to protect him. Her favorability level has finally hit 100%, and the system reminds her that upon close contact, all of his stats will double. Just as she's pulling him in for a close embrace, the monsters make another attack. But by the time their strikes land, the stupid monsters are hitting nothing but empty ground, because our guy has already leapt out of the way with Daphne in his arms. Her body then starts to react intensely, and she can feel a burning sensation inside, which has gotten stronger than ever before. As her desire grips her heart, her hold on him tightens, and he starts to bleed from his nose after getting overwhelmed by her softness. But that passionate embrace gives him a huge boost in power, and they finally touch down on the ground. She tells him she's just holding him to protect him while he's injured, so he shouldn't read too much into it. He replies that they're both good people and that every sacrifice is worth it to take down the monster. Meanwhile, the monster starts churning out even more clones, and now there are a total of 4. On the other hand, our boy is also doing his best to stay close to Daphne, because he wants every bit of strength he can get from her embrace. The scene then takes us to Sadiel, who's still staring at the red pill with worried eyes. Azathoth's words keep echoing in her mind, reminding her that since she's drunk his blood and resonated with his body, if he dies, she won't survive either. Looks like we're wrapping up this chapter here. As much as we'd love to see Sadiel's decision and how our guy's gonna beat that monster, we'll have to hang tight for the next episode to find out.